Kim.
Just to clarify, what Councilmember Ford is saying is, well, then what is the current process that a business owner should take place if he finds stuff inside of their cart?
I'm not gonna provide legal advice to a non-city entity, right? I mean, again, there would likely be due process issues for someone discarding an individual's personal belongings without an opportunity for them to get it. We certainly are complying with that from our end, and I would continue to advise that we should not be discarding people's personal property with proper notification prior to that.
So we should not be fining those businesses either. That's what I'm trying to understand here. I mean,
That's where I was going.
exactly, I feel like we shouldn't be fining these businesses if there's stuff in their cart.
So the fine is for allowing the carts to be off the premises, which is the difference.
You get that, but you're gonna have carts that are already off premises as it is, so.
It's already existing in the code.
Exactly, so what's the process?
So from the programmatic perspective, we have measures in place in which it is incumbent upon the businesses to tag and identify their carts, their assets, to ensure that they can then recover them if they're taken off the property to avoid being cited. There are obviously programs that make shopping carts available that have been retired, that can be sold for personal use. And those are the ones in which this broader program speaks to, that the previous iteration in which the program that was adopted back in 22-23 and put into place in that timeframe was speaking to the inherent issue of individuals were taking the cards and then leaving them at various locales, the Walmart in of essence, walking them off, leaving them in the private or public rights of way, and not returning them back after utilizing them for shopping reasons and purposes. So we have that program in place so that, right, they've got a tag, they've got a blocking measure. They have it very well known about once it leaves, they can get it back.
Maybe I missed it, but when does this go into effect?
What's the update?
So the update would have to come to council for an ordinance, so first and
So
second.
then will there be a warning ahead of time then to business owners to make sure, hey, get your carts? And if so, if you have people who have stuff in their cart, what do they do?
So if I may,
Yeah.
this has already been in place.
Okay, yeah,
This shopping cart ban.
Yeah.
Has already been in place for the better part of 18 months.
right.
The only difference is broadening the expansion of the shopping cart ban to public parks and public rights of ways
Municipal property.
and municipal properties. But it has already been in existence. We have simply expanded its reach within the city.
Okay.
I'll go to Mayor Douglas now.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Well, with this enforcement, is this something that the city council should look at budgeting for to add more park rangers? Or is this going to be another task for Front Range Patrol?
So the enforcement is going to be dependent upon the property in question, whether it is a public rights of way, which could be PD, it could be parkland, which could be park rangers, it could be even private property, which could then involve code enforcement. So it's not just it doesn't impact just one particular operational body. The change in and of itself is now inclusive of a of a facility or of an operation that was not initially considered when this was adopted back in 22-23.
Okay. And let's see, also with this change, because we, a lot of times over Veterans Park, we see a lot of carts connected to each other. So, so that going to, they don't have to be a shopping cart. They could be any kind of cart tied together. So should there be an ordinance on that as well, not to join carts together? Because you see a lot of that in the park as well. One thing is people pushing their own things around, but they're also joining these carts together and it looks like a train. What can we do about that?
So I would look at this ordinance, Mayor, and I would say, broadly speaking, given it is a prohibition against shopping carts, whether it is 1, 2, or 3 banded together, chained together, or connected by any form, it is still a shopping cart. So it would fall under that interpretation and that prohibition.
Okay. All right. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilmember Jacob.
Also to clarify, it says changes in notice period for abandonment 24 hours. So right now it's 48 hours for the business to retrieve it or for 24 hours to basically clear it.
Right now, it is 48 hours in which we have given for the retrieval of the shopping cart by the business before it has been deemed abandoned and then recycled.
And then you'll give 24 hours from the park rangers once they issue the citation to remove it from the property?
That is correct.
It's written notice.
Written notice, okay. If every shopping cart has a registered identification number and we run into the issue that we know that it's has this specific shopping cart, can the business owner then be able to say, you know what, we see the number of which number of carts that we have of our inventory? Can that be a way that they can also reclaim it or at least dispute it to be like, look, we would like to get our shopping cart, but it's full of something? Is that a way that we can kind of build in to work with them? Because I don't feel comfortable just issuing them citation if they really can't do anything about the situation.
Yes, I mean, there's obviously process that can be built in when dealing with the human aspect of an individual's property. You know, when we're trying to address a shopping cart that may have personal belongings that's been found within a public space, a public property, a public right of way. Obviously, there was a process in which we would notify an individual of the cart, and a process of which we would then go through a collection of that public property, which we have a policy in place of withholding that personal property. To which then that cart would then also have a notice under the provision that would then be based on the tag and the identification to then be reaching out to that business to then come and collect. So there are various operational steps that we can take and have taken that we have in place to address these various aspects and will continue to do so. That we have been with the likes of the various stores that utilize shopping carts for their means day in and day out. And they have been good partners to this point based on the ordinance that has been out there, like I said, for the last 18 months. The only difference that is coming is, once again, now it's going to be in parks, now it's on public rights of way. And there's not going to be very much of a change for them per se, as opposed to those individuals who are actually using the carts.
So they can keep their belongings too. Okay.
I just wanted to, yeah,
Are you responding to Councilmember
I
Jacob?
was responding to Councilmember Kim's question.
Okay, then hang on a minute. Let's
Sure.
go to Councilmember Jukes.
Oh, just, thank you for thinking through this. I know you had a subcommittee kind of walk through it. The park rangers were a part of that and gave advice around what this looks like. The way I see this is that we're gonna learn as we go. We're trying a solution to address some of the concerns we heard in the South. And there's gonna be some hiccups, right? There's gonna be a couple of fines or citations, but there is a process that folks can go through to address the citation piece. But the other piece that, what it will do is it would begin to eliminate all the shopping carts that are in like places like more like our Veterans Park and across the city or against our urban renewal in the Greyhound Grounds area. Like it'll begin to create a conversation around we need to move some of this stuff out in a humane way. And I know the park rangers are gonna reach out to the community, say this is what's gonna happen. And I imagine the same information will be on the front end too for the businesses. But I think this is an opportunity to try something that folks have really been just asking for, because it's as summer months come, it's gonna get even more congested with shopping carts.
Are you hiding behind the chair? Did you wish to say something
I wasn't hiding, but,
before I do?
yeah, I don't think it's fair for the supermarkets. I don't realize they have a problem here, but this is like somebody stealing your car and then running through the red light on 60th and 85 and getting a photo radar ticket sent to you in the mail because it was your car. And then, then abandoning it someplace and in a no parking area and getting a ticket for that. And we can't, I mean, we're punishing the good people. We can't. It's not right. And no, I don't have a solution.
Thank you very much. I'll call on the city attorney before I ask my questions.
Okay, so just to be clear, there is no change in regulatory authority for the city to impose citations on business owners. That's already in effect right now. That's not changing. This basically does is it provides another enforcement tool to impose citations on individuals that are bringing the shopping carts onto public rights of way parks, city-owned property. I just wanted to make sure Councilmember Kim's question was answered. I believe you asked whether or not there would be outreach or some notification to community members, including the businesses, about what this rollout would look like. And I don't have that answer, but I wanted to make sure you got your question answered. If there's a rollout, if this were to be approved by first and second reading, would it be parks or would it be?
Currently, we do not, because it's just not something that we had envisioned, because it wasn't not truly a change of our practice. Like, given that we're not targeting businesses, we're targeting the end users, because it's the practice and the change that how we're operating with those businesses remains business as usual.
So I have some questions also. First, what has been the efficacy of the current ordinance? How many collected? How many fines? Where do these carts wind up? Since this was passed, I think it was passed in the last 2 or 3 years, the new ordinance.
I will have to pull up. I think we had some numbers that your rangers had pulled. I'd have to also look to see what our code enforcement may have done, ma'am, from numbers that we may have seen on private property of complaints that we would have received from some of our some complaints from like multifamilies in our core city, but I don't have that at my fingertips.
Okay, I would like to know that information because that would tell us whether the ordinance itself needs to be fixed. Because if we have a problem that we're trying to address, then is this ordinance the best way of addressing it? And Horton, for example, passed an ordinance where the city actually does the collection and then they collect the carts and then they charge the stores for the cost of doing it, but they're $1,000 carts, so it matters to them to get their cars back. The other is that I'm very empathetic to the homeless who are down to their last little bits of stuff that are very important to them, and I can understand why they would be so excited to actually be in possession of a cart rather than the alternative, a trash bag or whatever the alternative is. At the same time, I think that we need to go back to the source of the problem, and that's access to grocery carts. That the stores that have grocery carts aren't adequately taking care of their carts. Either you push it into a garage stall thing for carts and it snaps behind it so you can't pull it out again. Customers, I see customers have groceries in their carts and they take them to their homes and then just leave their carts out on the sidewalk. So the 24-hour rule makes perfect sense to me because it might actually nab a cart before it goes into circulation for other purposes. But at the moment, solving the cart problem, I'm not sure that this is the answer to solving the cart problem. But I really appreciate the effort. I appreciate the presentation and that maybe we need to go back and tackle this in a different way. A constituent who had seen that this was on the agenda, and also because I was writing about all these last week, reminded me that all these requires you to put money into the cart garage in order to get your cart. You return your cart and you get your money back. So that would incentivize people perhaps to make use of it. In some ways, our businesses need to take better care of their carts instead of making us figure out how to take care of it. Councilmember Douglas.
Thank you. So I remember when this was initially initiated and passed, basically it was because there were complaints about empty shopping carts of being left behind.
Correct.
Okay, so this allows us then to go into parks and places that are public right of ways to
Correct.
identify the cards. And then it's turned into park rangers or whatever, or is the business then notified that they have found a cart that's full of stuff in the
So-
park?
Yeah, so I think I would compartmentalize these two things. What this is doing is it's prohibiting carts from being in public rights of way parks or city-owned property, period. Right, regardless of whether or not the cart it came from a commercial company, a Walmart, or it was purchased online. We're deeming, if we were to move this forward, council is deeming that there's a public nuisance component to shopping carts being used on public property, period.
Easier way to look at it, soon as it leaves that grocery store, shopping center's property, it's in violation.
If it's on a public right of way or park or city-owned property.
And so what if it's a cart that is not missing from one of our businesses?
Correct. So again, compartmentalizing it, it's not an abandoned, if it was purchased online, let's say, and it's not registered, someone could certainly own a shopping cart and they can use it in their yard, they can use it in a number of different places. And it's
This prohibits it from being used.
not city-owned property.
Okay. So there would be, if it's privately owned, but it's still there, and we're saying you cannot have it here, could they then just move it somewhere else that's not?
Yes.
Well, this is kind of I mean, I understand the intention. Once again, like everyone else, we're not seeing this as maybe a step in the right direction, maybe, but maybe not. I'm just trying to think of, how this is really going to be beneficial, except that then they, if it's privately owned, they just have to move it.
Correct.
And then it won't be confiscated.
Correct.
And, so again, I don't think finding the difference is going to be a deterrent from those. If it's not working presently for them to keep track of the shopping carts that are being on our property, how is this going to help?
I think it's providing an extra enforcement tool to issue a citation on individuals that are using shopping carts on publicly owned property.
Okay, but not the business to the people who are using the
So the
shopping carts?
businesses we can already enforce on under the existing code provisions.
Okay,
Right, and I would say I think we're conflating two issues into one here. The conversation about impacting businesses and discussion around enforcing on businesses, one that we've had in the past and we can have again and revisit about the efficacy or the efficiency. I think we're all more than willing to kind of go through that discussion and show you those numbers. This discussion is talking about the individual who's using the cart, not for the intended purpose that is being provided for to that business and not for the purpose or the benefit of what's intended when on our public property. And that is what this ordinance is trying to get at.
so how will we address removing the contents of the
So we will
carts?
not address, city will not be impounding the shopping cart. So they would be issuing a citation.
Can I interrupt for just a minute? People are waving their hands at me, but I need you all to let all of you know. I let Christy Douglas, Councilmember Douglas, go first because she hadn't spoken yet. Councilmember Ford had already asked to speak. Mayor Douglas wishes to speak. Councilmember Dukes wishes to speak. City Manager Rogers had raised his hand, but he has been speaking, so maybe he doesn't need that turn. Do you still need the turn?
I would just make you aware, we do have our park ranger supervisor online to answer other technical questions.
Okay, and the Councilmember Chacon also wanted to speak. So I just want you to know that I have seen you.
No worries.
But there is a list, so I will begin to go through those if Councilmember Douglas is finished.
I believe so. I mean, we've identified that there's an issue here that needs to be addressed, and obviously other people are wanting to weigh in on it. So I will I'll relinquish the floor to others.
Thank you, Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, so now we have to drill down on it. We know there's already ordinance in place to deal with the stores and their carts. Now you're saying that we're going to cite the person in possession of the cart. I'm just struggling to find out how this can be efficient for the city because the people that have the carts, the majority of the cars can't pay a fine. And so I guess to me it is, what is this from an enforcement standpoint going to cost for the city by actually taking it to this next step? I'm all for getting the carts out of places. But when now you're citing people that can't or won't pay the fine. And so how do we recover the taxpayers' dollars for a shopping cart menagerie when most of the residents that reach out to me are wanting just the basic services improved? And I'm trying to balance cost versus, because I could tell you, we could walk over to the park right now and every one of the people that have a cart in the park aren't gonna pay the fine. They're just gonna take it, tear it up, and you're just gonna accumulate citations on them because they have no money. So I just am trying to find out the efficiencies of the city when it comes to adding this piece to the ordinance. And if I can gather enough information that this is gonna be beneficial and worthwhile from a cost standpoint, because the people that are gonna be fined won't be paying the fines. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying to balance that piece out for me to be able to make a qualified decision.
I'm not going to tell you that we're gonna recover all of the personnel and or costs associated with that's just not.
Then how about an idea of what additional cost it is to the taxpaying residents from that standpoint, so that if I have to answer the question, that I can react to a constituent when they want to know what's it cost?
Yeah, I think where I was going with that, is that while we may not be able to recover the cost from an operational aspect, it may be no change to already the interactions that our various operational units, whether it's PD, park rangers, and or code enforcement are already having in the community without the ability to enforce, which is actually more cost time prohibitive than it is today. And that's where I would actually turn to Rusty, who is on the line, who can be able to be a little bit more detailed into why this would be a benefit to the operations in that way, and to the broader organization, and to the broader community.
Exactly what I want.
Hi, I'm here. This is Rusty Horton. I'm the park ranger supervisor. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. There were quite a few questions there that you all had asked, and I don't know specifically which ones to start with, but from inception, the ban as we kind of view it is primarily to, I guess, really just start the process of eliminating some of the massive amount of clutter that we encounter in the parks, whether it's in possession of somebody or whether it's abandoned. And I know there were several questions. Does anybody have specifics? We didn't write any tickets to the businesses over the last few years, and I don't think the police department did either.
Wow.
I know that was one of the concerns.
Rusty, can you talk about how this would impact positively or negatively your operations in the field day to day?
Sure. For the park rangers, probably the way it would impact us the most positively would be just to eliminate the amount of clutter and property that is accumulated at Veterans Park. Our goal is to fairly patrol all of the parks within the city for the citizens and make sure we're enforcing rules. But so often, the majority of our day gets monopolized by a lot of the clutter at Veterans, which I'm sure most of you have either had complaints about or seen for yourself. So the shopping carts specifically, and I also heard people mention just like regular pull carts, but the shopping carts, because of their size, the depth of them, and the ability to tie them together, they just allow for extreme amounts of sometimes property, sometimes really just accumulation of a lot of different things, whether it's bicycle tires or stuff that are that's grabbed out of dumpsters on trash day. So if folks did not have the ability to pile those full of property, it would change the appearance of what people possess as well. Sometimes those carts are piled 6 feet high, and as people drive by, by the parks, it's very easy to see the massive amounts of clutter. So in our opinion, it's a great start because it just minimizes the amount of property that people can collect.
Thank you very much, Rusty. Okay, Councilmember Dukes, then Mayor Douglas, then Councilmember Jacobo.
Rusty, thanks for being on the call, and I wanna, I guess, could you I wanna give you a chance to answer a couple questions, and I have a follow-up, but the first is when we chatted at Veteran Memorial, you kind of walked through the engagement process. We discussed like, you know the folks, you'll give them education, and then you'll be able to talk them through before, it's not like a rapid ordinance and you go and take and snatch and take the carts. It's more of a humane approach, relationship-based approach. Can you talk about that, how you explained it to me from the very
Sure.
beginning?
Sure, yeah. So one of the things that the Rangers have done is develop relationships. So the majority of the folks that we deal with on a day-to-day basis, I would say 9 out of 10 of them we know by name. We provide them with resources. We work close with community well-being. So as we deal with educating them about park rules, we take the approach that, we give them multiple warnings, give them the opportunity to change their behavior, and as a last resort, we cite them. So the ability to cite them has given us a tool that puts a little bit more pressure on them to follow the rules. When I first began in March of 23, we were not able to issue summons, and it was very, excuse me, it was very clear when we were given that that authority. It really changed the way that folks treated the Rangers and really listened to the Rangers. But with the ordinances that we have, they're very clear. But if we were to implement the shopping cart ban, our approach would be the same way, is that, we would start with just education. Hey guys, we just want you to know this is coming. And I'm assuming that it would be a little ways out before it would actually hit. And so it would give us an opportunity similar to some of the other, like Las Cruces, New Mexico, and Yakima, Washington, some of the places who have done somewhat similar things, just to give them education. And then as far as their belongings, we try to help them manage that. If there's things that they have that we will say, is this an essential item? And if it's an old bike tire, or if it's a big, veranda that they've picked up off of somebody's curb, we will dispose of those things for them to try to help them minimize the amount of property that they have. So for us, it's all about relationships, but in the last resort would be to cite them. But we will have to, from time to time, because there's some folks just aren't willing to comply.
Thank you. And just going back to the heart of this was that, we received a lot of complaints, conversations about folks not being able to use the parks, specifically in the South, but also you look at Highway 2 and you see the accumulation of stuff that, from a city perspective, and we try to, when Bill was here, we talked about like trying to market some of the parts of the city for a future economic growth. It's just hard to do that with the accumulation of stuff around the city. And so this is where when I had similar concerns, but I actually went out there, and like some of us already have, I talked with Rusty, and he really helped explain, like, this is based on what other cities have done. It's based on a relationship approach first. And knowing people, this is a nudge. A lot of folks will say, okay, we'll get rid of the shopping carts, but we'll figure something else out. But it creates a dialogue. I think this ultimately, it starts a dialogue around, why do you have a cart? Do you need other places to store your? And then it opens up communications to our community well-being, but it helps a conversation and more relationship based. And also knowing, like we all know, there's humans. There's gonna be some that be like, I'm gonna dig my heels in and I'm not gonna do anything, right? And I think that's a part of reality too. But I think that small group will probably be a lot less than we expect. I think 99% of them will be, folks will be like, okay, we can figure something else out and we'll move on. But that was the heart of originally bringing this to the tables. How do we find a possible solution to ensure parks in the south can be used and there's not accumulation of stuff that looks like it's a lot and unsafe for some of our residents. As far as the business side of it, as we mentioned, the ordinance is already in place to define businesses. And I agree with everyone about the process and how do we improve that. But I think today is really about what can we do as a step to strengthen this approach, right? And I think that's where we have. And in Rusty, I kind of mentioned, like, you heard me, 90% of the folks would probably be compliant and some of them would dig their heels in. Am I way off, or does that sound accurate to you?
No, I agree with you 100%. As with the other rules that we enforce, we do find a really high level of compliance, and it's definitely the exception. Now, it doesn't mean that they won't go back to it at some point and try to do it again, but the goal is obviously if somebody does, go back and we've given them a couple warnings, then we might have to deal with. But I agree with you. They're usually very willing to, if they have another option. And somebody mentioned earlier about, carts in general, similar to the carts that a lot of folks use for kids sports, when they go to their baseball games, or they go to a soccer game and they carry all their gear in. We don't have an issue with those because really they don't hold the amount of property that a shopping cart does. And that boils down, that's the crux to the issue. It's the size and the depth of them and they can tie them all together. So yes, I 100%, I agree with you.
And then just my last point is that if we don't move forward with something like this, I guess we'll just have to come back to the table about what's another solution. I guess just want to employ that to our council. Like, what else can we do other than maybe say no to this? What else is another solution we need to think about in the future if we don't want to move forward with this?
Thank you, Councilmember Dukes. Mayor Douglas?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Rusty. I had a question for you, Rusty. Have you had a conversation with the city of Denver? Because they do things different when carts are involved. I don't see as many carts in parks in the city of Denver. And we go there quite a bit throughout the month or so, just driving different events, things like that. But I don't see the cart issue in Denver. Do you know how they handle that cart situation?
Honestly, being our neighbor, you think we would, but a lot of the information we gathered, they weren't one of the ones that kind of came up as somebody who has a city that's really provided a good solution. So honestly, I don't. Maybe Kathy may, having come from Denver, working in the parks. I don't want to put her on the spot, but I don't know exactly.
All right. Yeah, they may have some good rules in place. And I was going to ask City Attorney Zarzaki, being with the city of Denver, do you know of any provisions they have there in place for shopping carts?
I'm not aware of the city and county of Denver of having a shopping cart or an abandoned cart ordinance.
Okay. All right. I would ask Rusty and his team to visit with Denver and see how that could help out. And the next thing is on the list is the curfew change in the park, and the combination of the two, I'm sure, would help a lot. So
yeah, we can do
thank you.
that. And we work closely with some of them. We border, obviously in several areas on our trail. So we'll reach out and we'll touch base with some of those folks.
All right. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Kathy, did you want to respond to Mayor Douglas?
Oh, I just I did work for Denver Parks and Recreation previously, but I don't know specifically what they do for shopping carts.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Chacon?
I think this is for you too, Rusty. Would we be able to, because I think we talked about it before too, replacing storage with wagons to give people at least a little bit of their property back? Especially if it's not, and it doesn't seem to be an issue, if we can replace it with wagons, would that be suitable to still help? And is there a place or a space that when people do have their possessions taken, or their storage, is there a way that they can get when it is their actual possessions?
So I just want to be clear, the way that the proposed ordinance would be presented to council is that the city would not be impounding shopping carts. It'd be issuing a citation for having the shopping cart on public property, but not impounding. I don't want to speak for the city manager, but my understanding is if the city were to move forward with the impounding of shopping carts, then there has to be a repository for personal goods, personal items, and that was not palatable.
Because I see it in twofold, the same thing, where it is educating, but it's also being privy to people that's their only possessions. It's different when it's kind of a word. I understand that. It's also different too. But,
Well,
oh, please.
so what we'll often do, and we kind of talked this through in some of our meetings, is that when they have the massive amounts of property, we do try to systematically help them work through what they have, and kind of select the things that are essential for living. I know that's hard for them and it may not sound completely fair, but again, some of them are very open to that as well, because we will, the things that they deem as trash or, garbage, they will allow us to assist them in disposing of that. But if it's, sleeping bags and food and whatever else they need, maybe like a small propane heater, we try to decipher what is really necessary. And you're right, it is their own, those are their life's possessions, but we're trying to help them kind of decipher a little bit.
Thank you for doing that too, honestly, with compassion. Quick question. This doesn't, when you have a citation and it's a summons for houseless relatives, this doesn't criminalize homelessness or lead in any kind of path in that way, does it?
That is a very good question. So I don't believe it would be criminalized, but I need to look at what our standard provision is for code enforcement. It may be we can look.
There is a process that ultimately it could lead to a summons before our municipal court or an administrative hearing process. It depends on the nuisance provision. So it's not a clear cut dependent upon the citation that's being issued. To Lee's point, we'd have to look at that.
Yeah,
I know he's looking at that right now.
Yeah,
Our 7 codes do fall under the criminal code, and they do issue warrants for folks who don't show up to court for those. If that helps at all, I don't know if it would fall under the same thing, Lee.
it would fall under chapter 6 under the nuisance provision, and 6.1003 states specifically, unless indicated otherwise, a violation of any provision of this chapter shall be deemed a civil infraction.
So it's a civil one. Is that the $100 fine for a civil liability for removing?
I'd have to get back to
No
you on
worries.
that, but it would be a civil infraction under chapter 6.
And then my last question, it was kind of concerning to hear that there was no citation for businesses. I don't think businesses deserve to be targeted though, but again, this is kind of twofold. We still need them to be somewhat disciplined and accountable for what their inventory is too. So it's a fine line because I don't want to target them either, but they still have to take care of their stuff.
And the issue back in 2022 is that we were getting little to no response from businesses and being due diligent to their own property. They were very much aware that their property was being taken off property. They were not responding to picking up their own property. We actually do collect their carts. We were bringing their carts back. But they were not taking any actions into prohibiting carts being taken from their property. So it was costing the city time, money, and effort to be doing their job in essence. So we were trying to get ahead of the issue and trying to, once again, be efficient and effective with our own time by having this ordinance in place and replicating what other cities around the Front Range were doing at that time as well.
Thank you.
Having spoken to Chief Sater a little bit about it, when it first came out, one of the issues that they really struggled with was who do they write the summons to? I mean, do you go to Walmart and write some young assistant manager a summons for a shopping cart, and he has to go to court, or it's just it's a challenging thing to deal with.
Thank you.
Thank you. It does seem to me then that we do need to look at access, and we do need to look at the originating ordinance. If it's not effective and it's not being used, that it is something that we probably need to get rid of. If we're making no use of it, we have been acting under the impression that supermarkets or whomever are being fined if they let their carts loose, if you will. And if they aren't, then that's something that we need to be made aware of. My question for you, Rusty, is, so if there's carts in the park and you have the discussion with them and they leave the park, where will they go?
The individual you're asking?
With their carts. I mean, you're not going to confiscate their carts, so they will leave the park property with their carts and go elsewhere, I would assume.
Well, I mean, I'm not exactly sure how it's written, but we would ask them to give up the cart at, obviously once we've done all the education and, we've gotten to that point where it's time to kind of enforce, we would ask them to empty the shopping cart and we often return carts now just out of, we'll just run them over, but we also have a collection point at the MSC. But yeah, we would hold them accountable right there. We wouldn't, and then if, we needed to get PD involved, if they were non-compliant, but again, 90+% of the time, we're not going to have to deal with that.
So I'm gonna step in, Mayor Pro Tem. That's a misstatement because that's not how we currently have the draft ordinance. At no point are we going to be taking anybody's cart. It's going to be a citation. We're going to work with those individuals in removing their carts from the public property so that they can then place them in a proper location that does not conflict with our ordinance. So whether that is on private property where it is secure, or if they can then be able to make means that then, whether it's going to a different mode of travel that is not a shopping cart, that is within their means to transfer, so be it. But at no time are we going to be impounding or requiring for them to transfer their goods from a shopping cart to such. We've said that more than a handful of times, and I will say that again.
Thank you very much. And nevertheless, if they leave, if someone comes up to them and says, you can't be here with your shopping cart, which is loaded with stuff, or your multiple carts, you can't be here either on park property or on city-owned property. You can, however, remove your cart from public property and take it elsewhere. So in a way, we will be protecting city property, of course, and I appreciate that. But we will be kind of moving the pieces on the board game around and not totally solving the problem, because they'll still have their cards and they'll still have their stuff. I mean, I can understand if a ranger who has these great relationships with homeless people, and I do believe that they do, I say that with all sincerity, that maybe they can get them to offload some of the trash that they might actually pick up as well, because I'm sure there are some who just choose to collect trash. But I don't see this as a solution for the areas that have this intensity of homelessness, because it will move folks who have carts in the parks and public areas into private neighborhoods. So I'm not sure if we're solving the problem with this. I appreciate the effort, but I do believe we need to keep looking at this and see what else is happening elsewhere, that the well-being team finding places for folks to live. They do a great report every week in the City Manager Week in Review report. That's very heartening, but I don't know that this is a solution. That's one opinion, and that's how I look at it right now. Anyone else? Okay, so we have a study session item. And we need to have some sort of consensus around it, I suppose, for staff to know what to move forward with or to move forward with this.
I think,
Are there people who are opposed to this ordinance right now? No. Okay. Mayor Douglas?
Yes, I'm not opposed to what's being presented. What City Manager Roger has stated from what the employees' action has been. I appreciate that because that's being honest. And I like that approach because that's keeping things firm and you're actually having that real conversation with those people who are, I mean, it's hard for them. But if it's a Walmart or King Soopers cart, those carts should be confiscated and taken back or put them wherever so they can come retrieve those because that's stolen property. And I believe that should be part of this ordinance to work that through because it's a tool. It's a tool in the toolbox that actually someone is using and they're doing it right. They're not abusing it. It's true communications. So if that could be part of the ordinance, that would be great. And I really like that the honesty and then the correction by City Manager Rogers. But these are the kind of conversations that I'm glad we're having because it's true to life. And that be part of this ordinance that if it is because it's stolen property, someone purchases, that's a whole different ballgame. But I think when it's a Walmart or King Soopers, because that's within that vicinity, those items that property should be confiscated. So that's my only add to this ordinance if we decide to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Douglas. We have a general consensus to move forward with this. Homelessness and the issue of carts is an intractable, wicked problem nationwide. So we'll see what happens with this. Now we get to another similar problem, which is the park curfew. And the presentation will also be from Kathy Levette, the Deputy Director of Parks and Recreation. So I thank you very much. Thank you.
Down, bottom. There we go. Thank you. So this is a presentation on park curfew options. This was something that also was brought up by City Council. Back in November of 2024, City Council approved a motion directing the city attorney to prepare a legal memo analyzing whether City Council could amend the municipal code to adjust our park curfew to a different time, perhaps dusk or 9 p.m. or another time. And then on January 27th, 2025, City Council directed staff to look into options of changing the park curfew. And then staff shared this topic with the Parks, Recreation, and Golf Advisory Committee in February of 2025. Currently, our park curfew is 11 p.m. to 5 p.m. daily for all of our parks, our open spaces, and our trails. During daylight hours, 7 days a week, our park rangers patrol the parks, the trails, and the open spaces. They provide education and enforcement of our park rules. Our ranger team is fairly small, and we typically have about 2 rangers at a time patrolling our parks. If a ranger's on vacation, we do have even more limited staffing available. After hours, PRG contracts with Front Range Patrol to patrol select parks on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. And Front Range Patrol, they conduct one nightly patrol on those Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays at River Run Park, Frontera, Los Valientes, Pioneer Park, and Monaco Park, and they conduct 2 patrols at Veterans Park. The second stop at Veterans was newly added to their patrols in 2025. So as PRG addressed City Council's request of looking into park curfew options, the department discussed that it was important for park hours that they be easy for residents to understand and know, and also easy for staff to understand and be able to educate people and provide enforcement. Also, the department wants to make sure that our residents can enjoy using the parks, the trails, and the open spaces throughout the day. Some challenges that staff identified is that potentially creating different hours for different parks or hours that are not consistent could be challenging for residents to understand and follow, and also for staff to enforce. Also, changing the curfew might not change the behavior of somebody who's inclined to break park rules. So for instance, if somebody were coming to a park with the intent to vandalize the equipment, the fact that the park is closed might not deter the person from doing that behavior. And then our park rangers patrol during daylight hours, and currently we have those limited contract services with Front Range Patrol 3 nights a week in certain parks. So if our curfew hours are extended, our department does have limited availability to enforce the new park rules. And then this is just some highlights of our current park rules that we already have, enforcement tools that we're currently able to provide education on and enforcement on, which is part of the Municipal Code Section 7. And these include things like we have rules that you're not able to have glass in any of our parks, not able to leave rubbish and waste in the parks, not able to start fires unless it's within, a fireplace or a picnic grill. It's against our park rules to camp overnight in a park or erect a tent. And it's also, people are not allowed to smoke in our parks except in certain designated areas. And if any park curfew changes are made, we've identified some impacts that we'll need to prepare for. A big one will be a robust marketing and education campaign so that residents and park users understand what the new park hours are. It will probably take a few weeks to a few months for the new hours and the new curfew to be widely known and understood by everyone. We also observe that our open spaces and our trails are often used by commuters who might be traveling to or from work in the early morning or later in the evening. So potentially adjusting park curfew might impact people's commute routes depending on what a new curfew might be. Also, many of our parks are adjacent to schools, and we know that children might travel through the park to get to school. So again, adjusting park hours could potentially impact the way that children get to school. And then our park permitting requests and our shelter rentals for the 2025 season are already underway. And so they're underway now through mid-October. And so currently our shelter rental hours are from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., which allows a buffer from our park curfew. If those hours are changed, we would need to consider adjustment and communication to current permit holders. And then additionally, currently our municipal code allows exceptions to the curfew for government employees engaged in official business or if specifically authorized by the city. If the curfew's changed, this provision should be maintained, but we might need further clarification on authorized activities. So for instance, if there's a permitted baseball game going on in the park past curfew, spectators might wish to spill out into other areas of the park or use a nearby playground or a nearby picnic shelter. So we might need to think about how we're defining that permitted activity. And then also changing our park signs will cost changing our park signs will cost about $34,000. It will be about $4,000 for new blank rule signs, which staff can print in-house. And then the total labor cost to install them is about $3,000. And then we also have the large park name signs that most of those have the park hours. We estimate we have about 46 of those, and so that would be about $30,000 to replace those. And so then, considering all of this, as PRG is recommending maintaining our current park curfew hours of 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. for all of our parks, our trails, and our open spaces. This allows residents to continue enjoying the park system to the full extent that's available today. It also allows more opportunities for the parks to be activated with users, making them less attractive to conduct negative use. And we also recommend increasing our contract with Front Range Patrol so that they can conduct after-hours patrols 7 days per week. This would allow them to visit our parks every night of the week, help enforce our curfew that we have, engage people who might not be in compliance, and provide that additional enforcement. We also have some alternative curfew options for City Council to consider and discuss. One option would be seasonal hours. So we could establish winter hours of 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. This could be November 1st to April 30th. And then summer hours of 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. May 1st through October 31st, when it's lighter, longer. This still allows residents a wide range of hours to utilize our parks while closing them 1 or 2 hours earlier in the evening. And then the seasonal hours, that would be a scenario where the hours change twice a year, but they otherwise don't vary across the seasons and they're fairly consistent, making it easier for users to understand and for staff to enforce. Another option is sunrise to sunset. This would limit park use to daylight hours only, and it would limit park hours significantly in the winter. This also creates a scenario where hours vary all year, which can be a little bit more challenging in terms of people understanding exactly when the park's opening and closing and providing that enforcement. Also, our park rangers typically don't work after dark, so we have limited ability to do the enforcement. And then a third option would be 1 hour after sunset to 1 hour before sunrise. This would allow more opportunity for early park users to go to the park before work, to walk a dog or to get some exercise in. And then in the evening as well, when you come home from work, if you wanted to get out of your house and use the park, you'd be able to. It would also give a little bit more variability for people to be in the park while there's still light in the sky. You know, at sunset, it's often still light outside. And so it gives a little bit more room for people to finish up their park activities at the end of the day before they need to leave. But again, a challenge with this one is it does create hours that vary throughout the year. And then we do have a limited opportunity for our rangers to provide enforcement after that. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Deputy Director Levesque. All right, I now have 3 people who want to speak. Councilmember Chacon was first, Mayor Douglas was second, Councilmember Kim is third. Councilmember Chacon.
Thank you for your presentation, by the way. Initially, I was okay with this, but even reading the memorandum just right now too, I think it drastically changes how we look at Commerce City. In my opinion, one, we don't kind of go align with all the other cities close to us from being from 11 to 5. I also think it kind of wastes money because we have to completely spend on brand new signage if we do have to. And I can see this honestly impacting social gatherings more. I see this impacting the birthday parties or the small gatherings after sports of all the communities that would be there. And I know some of the parties, even some of the events that we throw before, we don't even get out till about 10 or 11 sometimes, just passing out. So I don't want, and again, it kind of was mentioned that those that are gonna do something late at night in the park are gonna do it anyway. Like they don't care whether it's open or closed. So I don't feel that this is really suitable right now, given that we won't have any enforcement, even if we did change it. And I feel like it kind of wastes money in a way that we're not really tackling the root of the issue. And I don't want to further stigmatize Commerce City to be a space that, look at, they close up shop at night. We're right in between all these other cities that are around 11. And I know about it's soccer season and baseball season and everything else too. So I'm really actually not in support of this. I'd rather keep it the way it is from 11 to 5.
Mayor Douglas?
Thanks for your presentation. I had a question, a couple of questions. One is the park rangers limited hours. Is it for the park rangers protection just to be, because when there's light outside, safety factor, approachability? Could you, Rusty, you're online here. Could you explain that? Appreciate that.
Certainly.
I think,
Was
Russ,
somebody else talking?
Yeah, it's me, Russ. I think we have Deputy Director Levac to answer that question.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Oh, okay.
Yes, Mayor Douglas, our rangers work during daylight hours, so they actually adjust their hours throughout the year. In winter, working a narrower window of time, and then in summer, having a wider window of time to patrol our parks. But it is in large part for their safety. And that's when the majority of users are in the parks, and then they have that interaction with, more users, more residents, about, their park experience and trying to make sure that they are providing education as needed and enforcement as needed.
Okay. And I do like the recommendation to keep it from 11 p.m. to 5. But I do think this wasn't part of this presentation or the ask, but to have emergency ordinance in case there are some disruptions in a park where, like they do in other cities, well, they'll shut it down, they'll put up temporary fencing, and just to make sure people are going to be vacate the property based on their activities. So, and then by having more participation with the front range patrol, and maybe with the hours coming to daylight, we could have more park rangers in the parks visible around the park, especially heavily used. That will also help deter, I would say, people who are bad actors. So I appreciate the fact that you came up with all these alternatives, but also look at limiting the time in activity for our citizens. So I think we need to do better on our side to be more proactive, and that way this really could work both ways. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Kim.
How many events have we had in the past year at all of our parks that have gone beyond dusk?
Hello, Ken Redmond, Director of Park Recreation and Golf. We would have to get back to you on that. We have a lot of special events as it relates to the city. In our parks, we do have a current ordinance which allows the city to have an exemption to our own curfews in parks. So as it relates to our programs, we can certainly go as late as we want to. But I would have to look into how many rentals we have in our parks that go late. Certainly it's going to be in the summer that we see that.
Right.
And typically it's going to relate around our
Baseball
pavilions
season.
and shelters and some baseball rentals that we have that are private.
And then around our surrounding cities, the different parks, what are their hours?
I think it's pretty similar.
Is it pretty similar?
Yeah, and I know Rusty and the Rangers did some research on this, but I think a lot of the surrounding communities were pretty similar to what our current hours are.
And then the other question I have too then is related around the rental of the gazebos, the different areas. The question is, do we currently have that in place? Or what is the process for us to be able to say, I want to go to Veterans Park and utilize one of those gazebos? How do I reserve one of those?
So we have specific gazebos, shelters that are rentable in our park system. Not every park has a rentable shelter because it depends on the size and how popular the shelters are when we decide to rent them. Veterans does have a couple that you can rent. Typically, we rent those as for all day, right? Because we don't have the resources to rent them like in time blocks or whatever, so we typically rent them for a day. So it depends on the park and what
So
we look
why,
at.
why don't we have all of them established? Why only some?
Because some are really small, right? Like some of our shelters are just a 8x8, 6x6 shelter that has one table under it. No one's going to rent that, right? It's just one table that can fit 6 people. So those become a first available.
So what
first
about the
served.
ones that have like 5 or 6 tables underneath it? Like
Those
if
are
we're-
reservable. And
Those
they're-
are reservable.
And at most parks that have those large canopy shelters that start to fit that 30+,
Yeah.
those ones are reserved at all parks. It's the
So
smaller ones
other
that you see.
people end up showing up there to, let's say, use that spot, but they're not reserved and they could be kicked out, is what I'm understanding.
So how our
Should be.
shelter reservable system works
Mhm.
is if they are not reserved by someone, and we'll put a parks maintenance, we'll put a placard up, letting people know that it's reserved that day. If no one reserves it, then it's a first come, first serve available. Right, like if you want to go and sit under there with your child or your significant other and just have a picnic because it's not being used, have at it, right? Like you want your residents to be able to enjoy that space without a park ranger stopping by and saying, hey, you have to rent these only, you're out of here, type of thing.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dukes.
Thank you. I think that's a great question. I do see them rented like Villages East Park, a lot of birthday parties. But it also makes me think about the question, like if, like Veteran Memorial, if someone rents those out, but they just have a gathering, is it up to the residents to tell people to leave, or will the park rangers help kind of move folks away from there?
Are you asking if someone rented it, but then someone else is in the space?
Yeah.
And you show up for your party, but other people are there?
Yeah,
I believe that they could call, the park rangers can assist. It's in the case where it's like next to the rec center, they could go in and talk with the rec center staff and let them know they had reserved it, but someone else is there.
okay.
So we can provide support and assistance to let the folks there, know that, this has been rented and you need to move along.
Okay. My other question is, so I appreciate the due diligence in working through this, and I realize how complicated it is. And so, I like the idea of keeping it, 11 to 5 a.m. But I'm curious around the cost for increasing the frontline support. And I know and the other reason why I wouldn't want to change it, I didn't realize $34,000 for all the signs. And I knew there would be a cost, but that's a lot. That's without employment to put them up. But like how much would it cost for the frontline?
For Front Range Patrol,
Range.
we currently they're here 3 days a week. We currently pay them $720 a month. And to have them come 7 days a week, it would be about $1,500 a month.
What's that in a year, do you know? Like that's rough math.
If I'm not mistaken, we were looking somewhere between 150 to 210,000 for a contract for, I think, comprehensive coverage across the entire city.
And does that include, could that be just summer hours, or is it year round, or could it be just during summer months?
I believe that was annual, if I'm not
Was
mistaken,
annual.
Chad.
That was it, correct, yes.
I would say don't skimp if you're gonna want to approach having a greater presence and not just looking at this from a summer perspective. Given that we have presence and activity within our parks, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent weather.
Yeah. Well, and that was one of my original concerns with the park curfew, is that just the safety aspect, whether it's in the winter time when people might be sleeping and, when it's -0 or whatnot, or negative degrees or cold degrees, that's a sick area. But then also in the summertime with a deterrent for like things happening in the park. And so I do agree with you, City Manager Rogers, around that. I guess do you have what it's annually now versus the 200,000? Like how much of a budget increase would that be?
Don't know off the hand what we have, but we'd have to come back with a budget appropriation, which is a 2 reading ordinance, and that's something that we can request. What we would do is request as an ordinance to get us to the end of 2025, and it would then be a part of the PRG's base budget for 2026 as we go through that budgeting process.
And then with that service, contracted service, how, like, have they been for us as a city? Have they really been, obviously you want to recommend them moving forward, but do you feel like it'll be a cost well served, but then also is there a challenge with giving them more hours and the reliability of it? Because it'll be spread out if they have other contracts with other cities.
So what Front Range Patrol does for us currently, as they patrol our parks, has been a great benefit for us.
Okay.
And we've beefed up the patrol at Veterans Memorial Park, and they go there more often than what they have before. We have seen, I will just tell you, in the last several months, with them going to Veterans Memorial Park, the nighttime activities has dropped tremendously there. Late at night, you go by there, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and see a lot of activity at that park. Not so much now, at least specifically at the nights that Front Range Patrol patrols it, right? Because they know what night Front Range Patrol is going to come, so they'll vacate the park. And what was your other question you had on that?
Well, just the added, added employment for them, will that be a conflict? Will they have enough
Gotcha.
staff, basically?
So basically what they do is, if we were to increase the staff, they would basically hire staff just for our patrol, right? Because it would be such significant enough, they would most likely, and I can't speak for them, but most likely what they would do is hire staff specifically for our patrols.
Okay.
And we've seen that as we've hired like security and stuff, right, for recreation centers and stuff, like they would hire specifically to help our centers because it's such a significant boom for them.
Okay, thank you for that. And I guess my last question is, I know we talk about veteran memorials a lot, but I know Councilmember Kim and I also dealt with like kids being dropped off early in Frontier Park and, using the restrooms and vaping, right? So I guess, do you feel comfortable with their ability to really meet people in relationships across the broad, diverse community that we do have? I mean, thinking about either training that they have because I wouldn't want more enforcement for just enforcement, but being able to really flex, but hey, you're a middle schooler, move on versus like escalating it. Or if you're in Pioneer Park and the lights are on, like, how do you feel about that aspect of it?
Well, that's a great question. And I think, one of the things that our partnership has gone well with Front Range Patrol, they give reports to Rusty Horton, our park ranger supervisor, on a daily basis, so he can see the actions that have taken place each night. One of the things we've done with the current staff that we have with Front Range Patrol, right, is to try to keep consistency with how our park rangers also supervise, and that's education first, enforcement more down the road. It's really like education, then enforcement, right? So we try to breed that also into Front Range Patrol, and with their staff and the enforcement that they have. And we have seen at times, right, with some of their staff, that may come from a law enforcement or military background or whatnot, and they're trying to be a little bit more stringent. We've recognized that over the time through the reports, and we'll talk to their commanding officer and say, hey, let's get them to have training in education first. And Rusty helps with that, and he'll be involved with that. So we feel pretty confident and comfortable that we can get Front Range Patrol to come from an education standpoint, because that's what we always want to come with.
Okay.
Not only as it relates to our in-house population and our parks, right, but even as people are going through the parks and they've got their dogs off leash and things like that, we're always from an education standpoint first. That's what we believe in.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Cheater.
I'm in favor of leaving it like it is. I'd like to see more flexibility with, you got people going to work at 4 or 5 in the morning, that like to ride their bicycles and it's, Sand Creek's a nice place to ride at that time in the morning. What I mean by being flexible, if you got somebody thinking that they can go over and play a game of basketball at 4 in the morning, well, that's not acceptable because you're affecting the neighbors. But if you want to walk your dog in the park at that time in the morning, because you got to do work at 5, I don't have a problem with that, I don't know if there's a way of being flexible or not, but it would be nice if we could be. But you still have to have a lawn place for the one that wants to play basketball. Or make a bunch of noise and be able to go shut them down. That's where I'm coming from.
Thank you very much. Counselor Douglas, did you want to say something?
Yeah, actually, because, you know, this was first looked at as a way to address some of the issues with homeless people making their homes in the park. And that's basically what they're doing. And I don't think that changing the hours is that's not gonna do it. Especially with hearing now the costs that would be involved to do something like that. I just think we're gonna have to find another way to address some of this. I know that there's been some vandalizing, especially when it comes to the restrooms and the use of the restrooms. Smearing graffiti on the walls and things like that, which is, you know, a sanitation problem or health problem for other people who are using those facilities and have a right to their tax-paying residents here, and they should have the right to expect to be able to use the facilities that they're sharing in the cost for. So it's almost like, I mean, can we look at the possibility of figuring out something that addresses loitering and health hazards and public nuisances and leaving behind trash? I know that there was a site that was moved this weekend, which I appreciate the city staff tackling that issue and getting it resolved. However, they left all their trash behind, and so that is another thing that we have to deal with. So I don't think changing curfew is the answer, but I think we have to come up with something that is legal as deterrence for people abusing our public facilities, which deters other people from being able to rightfully use those safely. And it's just a statement, I guess. So.
Councilor Ford?
You know, I wouldn't disagree that changing the hours, I mean, we know what we're trying to affect and where we're trying to get compliance. We have a lot of good taxpaying residents in our community that pay for those facilities. They have the right to use them. I think some of the things that I heard while listening to the presentation and the comments, one is if a family in Commerce City decides to rent one of those pavilions and they come in and they do the process and they show up to the park and there's 3 or 4 homeless people sleeping on the benches at Veterans Park, and it's upon them to try to move them on their way. I would hope that at time of registration, when you secure that park, that there would be adequate information given to those who rent that space, making sure that there's a number they can call if there is a problem when they arrive. I wouldn't want our residents to have to address the situation of, hey, get your sleeping bag and your shopping cart and leave, because a lot of these people are not going to take kindly to being pushed around. And I don't want to create those conflicts. I think as a city, if we're renting that, it ought to come with some guarantees that they're gonna be able to show up to a clean space to enjoy what they rented for their family. And that's some of the problem. I mean, and I know some people, if they rented a space and they showed up, it could turn into a fist fight or worse. When I see the number of $34,000 for signage at the parks, that one really concerns me because, you know, that's a department that I ran, was the sign department, the traffic division. we made all of our own signs. I would hope that we're still making our own signs. I mean, everything from every sign in the park to every regulatory sign and when a work order came in and said, you need to produce X amount of signs and go put them up. That's what we did. So I'm just kind of shocked by a number of $34,000 per sign. I don't know if we're outsourcing, whatever, but, at the end of the day, that's not something I had expected to see. I want to make sure that our residents have the opportunity to have a good experience in our parks. And with some of the stuff that we see in our community, they can't have that experience in the parks. I mean, there's been nights where I will leave the council meeting and intentionally drive over to Veterans Park. Doesn't matter what time of year it is. Yeah, half a dozen or more people with shopping carts sleeping on the tables under these pavilions. My goal with this ordinance was to try to reduce some of that. And so, I get it. You have that, education. But at some point, we have to say, this is not okay. Someone has rented this space. You're after hours, move along. And that's what I'm hearing from my constituents is saying, hey, we can't even utilize the park because these people are in there all night long, shooting up heroin, smoking crack, whatever it is, and we're finding needles in the playgrounds. We're, dealing with these things. And I'm just trying to keep it real, as the mayor said during our last presentation. It's a fact. People don't want to take their kids because, hey, I was there with my kids, there was a needle in the playground area, How do we, and I'm looking for help, how do we create an environment that our residents feel safe enough to take their kids over there to slide down the slide at Veterans Park without their kid finding a needle or without trying to have a pavilion for a birthday party without having feces or anything else? I mean, I want to get to that point where we're prioritizing our taxpaying residents with the services that they signed up for. And I don't know what the answer to it is. And I'm looking to the parks folks and to our attorney and city management to help us identify ways that we can ensure good interaction with our community at our public spaces. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councilmember Ford. Before I go to round two, what happens when a sleeper is rousted after 11 p.m.? Do you know?
So if somebody's sleeping in the park, and then at that point, it would probably be our Front Range Patrol that is engaging with the person, since our rangers typically aren't working in the evening. So Front Range, will approach the person, let them know they're there past curfew, ask them to move along. If they won't, Front Range Patrol then can call the police department for help with enforcement.
And do we have any data on that? Of, how many encounters and what they result in and that kind of stuff?
We would need to gather that, and then we could provide that.
I think that would be helpful, because we have the rules in place. So it seems to me that it's again a matter of enforcement. These things shouldn't be happening in the parks, and they should be enjoyable spaces for our families and residents. So I don't see personally that the changing the hours will help that situation, but we just really need to push up on enforcement of the things that we have on the books. Councilmember Chacon?
Councilmember Ford made me think of something, because I used to teach at Chicano Park, where in San Diego, where we had a huge houseless relatives, same thing with the bathrooms, things like that. What they did there was create a coalition of neighbors that was basically, I remember I mentioned the Guardian Angels before, so they did that in Denver here. But it was the same thing there essentially, and they kind of like had their vests and they had like stuff that they would go out, they'd get a little bit of a stipend. And they would do patrols where they would just walk through constantly. And it would be like 11, 1, like different times. I don't know if we can partner with community members like that. I feel like community members would be, because they want to be a part of their park so much. I also don't know what type of liability that is, kind of creating that type of space too, so I don't want to be naive about what could be created, but just kind of maybe working with community in that way more to one, make it feel like it's their park too, but also to create not just education, but a culture of taking care of their park. That's kind of what made Chicano Park really interesting at the end, was that it ended up being that even the houseless relatives there would take care of the park. They literally would clean the park. It was bizarre, but it worked. Sorry.
Yes, City Manager Rogers.
Yes, obviously, we have issues with when we think about the parks at night. And, you know, I've gotten a number of different correspondence, whether it's for the mayor, obviously Councilmember Ford or others, about, you know, I would call it individuals that have been in our parks, that have been at the pavilions or on park benches, even during our hours during the day. That have also caused a limitation of the uses or the benefit of the uses of the parks for individuals that want to be able to come through just during the normal workout, just during the normal hours of the use of the parks. I think that's a problem area as well. Because even when we are seeing them during the 11 or from 5 a.m. to 11 p.m., and we are enforcing what you find under the Chapter 7 provisions, and they aren't, let's say, breaking those Chapter 7 provisions, right? They are still occupying those spaces, and they are allowed to occupy those spaces. And that is where we have those challenges. But I think what I've heard tonight, there's some things that we can try to take back to the whiteboard and try to be a little bit more creative. And we may have to be a little bit more dynamic in how we approach it operationally to kind of get to some changed behavior about the occupation of those spaces during the park hours that may lead to some greater enforcement when they're occupying that space after the fact as well. But I do have to recognize that the issue just isn't when the park is closed. The issue is occurring whether it's noon, 3 o'clock, 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Whether it's on a trail, Veterans Park, up north or in Core City, it is consistent. And during the day, they're abiding by the rules of the park as we have codified within the park. It is when after hours, they are simply closing their eyes, we're rousing and they're moving on. But during the day is when we're having those issues because people aren't able to actually utilize the park. To Councilmember Ford's point, where he's getting the complaints, it's really during that period of time, right? I can't take my daughter, I can't take my son, I can't take my family and use the pavilion. What can we do? So we're gonna have to get creative and, like I said, be dynamic operationally. How can we get some changed behavior during that 5 a.m. to 11 p.m. And we're just gonna have to really see what that looks like on that whiteboard.
Councilmember Douglas?
So can I ask City Attorney, Zeki, do we have laws, about loitering?
We do not have specific loitering laws, particularly in park property, right? We have a fairly robust number of enforcement capabilities under Chapter 7, as well as Chapter 6, the nuisances provisions. I did put back to the top of your emails a memorandum that I sent out late last calendar year, and that lays out the number of different code discretion or enforcement discretion capabilities that the city has, particularly as it relates to parks property.
Yeah, because there should be something in place as far as health hazards. Also, drug use has to be prohibited, alcohol consumption has
Alcohol
to
is
be prohibited. So we do have things
We do.
that if we are creative about it, we can come up with some. Thank you.
Councilmember Dukes.
Going back to the staff's recommendation, after this discussion, I'm okay with the recommendation of, working with Frontline. Or Front Range and increasing the dollar amount and thinking about that as we look at doing more enforcement. So I just want to put that out there because I thought that was a great recommendation.
And if their contract goes over 250,000, it comes to us anyway. So,
But I don't know, do they need consensus to move
or
forward?
if you need an RFP or whomever or whatever. it
Oh, no, I
needs.
mean, just for this, for
Yeah,
the
I'm
staff.
going to
right
get
now.
to that. Yep, absolutely. Are we good then? I don't hear anyone saying that they want to change the hours. Okay, thank you for doing the presentation, doing all the work, I appreciate it.
Yes.
11 to 5 is for me.
Sorry, Mayor Pro Tem. Is there clarification on like, I know we're not gonna change the hours, but do you need clarity on moving forward with the Front Range?
No, that's operations, so
Okay.
that's pretty clear. And like I said, we were gonna have to bring that back to you all regardless, dollar amount or not. So.
Yeah.
Already there.
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you again so much. All right, we're gonna move to ICSC, the International Conference of Shopping Centers prep discussion, and Brian Pettiplace, Deputy Director Economic Development, is going to make the presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, fellow council members, Mayor. Good evening. Here to give an overview of the ICSC Las Vegas conference that kicks off this weekend. Will be Garrett Anderson, myself, and the mayor and Councilmember Kim will be representing the city at the conference. It's being held May 17th through the 20th, 2025.
If you go.
It's easier to read. So the May 17th through the 20th, it's being held at the Las Vegas Convention Center. Approximately 25,000 attendees. At one time, years and years ago when I attended, that number was much, much higher, but due to the consolidation of the industry and bankruptcies and a number of other things, still remains healthy, but it's not nearly as large as it used to be. There are 3 exhibit halls in which roughly close to 800 exhibitors will be there for exhibitor interaction from our team. And that's a little bit different, and I'll talk about that in a minute, about how that's different this year due to a massive construction progress that's underway at the Las Vegas Convention Center. It's interesting, the attendee makeup at the ICSC conference. It's not just, some people think it is just retailers, but it's property owners, it's developers, and that's everything from a strip center to a grocery anchored center to super regional malls, luxury properties. So it runs the entire gamut. All of the major brokerages have a large presence there, representing the tenants they represent. Obviously, there's the lending component from investors, real estate investment trusts, the people who fund those projects and help make the finances work for those projects, which we all know in this economic environment continues to be more and more challenging. And is some of the reasons why we're seeing a lot of the things we're seeing in the press when it comes to retail. Another interesting piece of the conference that people may not realize is the amount of service providers that are there to sell their wares, basically sell their services. And that's everything from, the most visible thing is Christmas decorations at shopping centers. That's where you buy them. That's where you make those orders. Outdoor water displays, things like that. So there's a number of those service providers. There's a large focus on students. They want to create a pipeline of people who want to be involved in the real estate industry, the commercial real estate industry. So a number of universities send their students, and there are student focused competitions as well as student focused sessions. Then obviously there's the retailers, and they ran everything from convenience stores, car washes, and things that aren't so exciting to all the way up to the retailers, the food and beverage components that we're looking for in grocery stores and all of the others. And then finally, there's a good representation from the public sector that attends as well, doing what we want to do while we're there. And that's what we're doing while we're there. The 3 primary goals are education, We are really there to learn about the concepts and retailers that are out there and active in the industry or in the market. We want to understand what their plans are, specifically in Colorado or the Denver metro area. And the more intelligence we get, the better we can be at our strategy and our marketing and our recruitment of prospective retailers and prospective concepts, because we can learn the size of their stores, what they need in a site, how much land, do they prefer to take and lease a space, or do they do ground up build up? We're also there to do promotion and marketing. We're there to say, we are here, we are Commerce City, and this is what we're here for. We want you to know who we are, and that we will welcome you, and that we want you in our community. And we also are promoting developable sites as well. Anytime we get a site plan from a developer and we get permission, those site plans are provided to those concepts to make sure that they understand where they might fit in a specific project. And then there's a very large relationship building networking component to this conference. This is a multi-year strategy in which we engage those prospective retailers. We learn who the right person to talk to is, and then we keep engaging them on a regular basis throughout the year and at future conferences so that they keep us top of mind and we can continue to understand how their expansion plans and decisions are being made and may change in our favor. And then finally, just some additional details. For the third year in a row, we are partnering with the Adams County Economic Development Team. We are sharing a booth with them. That really helps us when we're scheduling meetings and or being able to promote. There's a screen there. We are playing a promotional video for the city as well. Like I said, the convention center is undergoing a massive top to bottom renovation. So the main halls that we usually use are not available. Another thing to consider is just that it's in the desert. It's 100 degrees. There's a lot of outdoor activities. And then just the travel logistics to that many people and the time it takes to get in between meetings is something that we as attendees need to plan for. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Thank you very much. Councilor Pacheco?
I have a quick one. One of the things that when I went to the New American Leaders, they were talking about was having youth as community developers. There's really no path for youth to kind of get into that. So I appreciate that there's education. Is there anything with our city that we can partner with that type of education to have our own community developers from community? And one of the specific things that they were talking about was having equity provisions as community developers to have that both a business-led focus and a sustainable focus too. Is there anything already within the city?
Not currently, but we certainly could reach out to the representatives that are working with the student focused part of the conference and see how other communities have been doing that and see if there's something we can do to replicate it.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yep.
I have questions. Does anyone else have questions? Councilor Douglas. I'm sorry, Mayor Douglas. Yeah. Make that mistake.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you for the presentation. Brian. Yes, that was my first time attending the conference last year with Mayor Pro Tem. And it was eye-opening. Like I said, there are a lot of attendees there that are not only property owners, brokers, investments, and retailers in the public sector. One thing I would ask this year is for us to, myself and Councilmember Kim, to have some maps that show properties that are available for these retailers to know exactly what targeted areas that our economic development is working with, and especially traffic wise. Last year we did distribute some USB sticks that had information on it. So I would like to know exactly how we're going to be prepared so that we can make this experience best we can. On Sunday, there is an opportunity for some educational with retailers and brokers, and then investors, just how financing works in today's market, and just hear a lot of stories. And there's like 13 different presentations from 12 to 4:30. So we had to pick and choose which one myself and Councilmember Kim would like to attend. But I thought majority of them were very well attended information. There was a few that were kind of, wow, where is this going? You know, so really didn't get much out of a couple of them. But I say overall, it's like I said, it's like Ryan said, it's well attended and a good opportunity for us to walk up. And then we did have a list last year, and then what we did was we also, instead of going from side to side because you have maneuver, we decided on our way to those different that were selection of retailers on our list. We would actually go to other ones as well and do some cold walk-ups and introduce ourselves. So that was nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. We are having a laminated map created for you and the council member. The map will show us in relationship to the airport and Denver overall, and then it will zoom in and show the difference between the area around the arsenal. And then we have worked with our community relations team, and what we have is this business card that has a QR code that links to what's called a link tree, and that is where all the site plans for all of the projects that are currently on the drawing board are on this code. So if you scan this code on their mobile device and or their iPad, they can be able to go in and look at those specific sites, and you can speak to each one of them as well. So that'll be another thing that you'll be armed with as well. So you'll have the laminated map, and you also have these cards as well. And then these will be available at our booth as well, so that anyone walking up and says, well, what is Commerce City, Colorado? They can get one of these cards and they can learn all there is to know. There's also our economic profile that we produce on an annual basis and a quarterly basis. That'll also be on here as well. And that speaks to demographics, to speak to housing, households, income, educational attainment, and other facts and figures about the city as well. So we try to give you as much information as possible so you can field any question that may be directed to you if there is a question from an exhibitor or a broker.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
The laminated map will be wonderful. They really look forward to having a visual, so that'll be really helpful. That's great. Are there any appointments set?
Right now, what we're finding is that there is a kind of a lack of response from some of the exhibitors that we've worked with before, some of the hospitality properties. Specifically, we've reached out to them. We had wanted to continue the conversation with First Watch, and she hasn't been responsive. We're going to try right up into the last minute to try to get FaceTime with them. We do know in certain circumstances where their booth is. So as a team, making sure we're going to go to that booth and ask them what the status is, what the plans are, refresh all of our information, and then continue that relationship building. So we're working on it right up until we're there on the ground.
Okay, that's great. And when I was walking around with Mayor Douglas, and I have said this before, is that everybody likes to meet the mayor of a city. So that's a really important, it's important that he's going. And of course, Councilmember Kim, I'm glad somebody else on the city council is getting the opportunity to have the experience and speak up on behalf of Commerce City. That'll be really great. What about the booth itself? When Adams County did the booth before, they showed the Commerce City label on the map as being down by I-70.
Yes.
As opposed to our full range of Commerce City. Have we seen an improvement there this year?
Yes, absolutely. We took those notes to them last year, and in anticipation and planning for this year, we gave them that note as well. And we made sure that the map was updated. So that note was given to them, and they did respond. We'll be able to confirm that when we're there.
Okay, great. And I know last year that even then, because so many people want grocery stores, they just basically don't come to this because it's their market. A seller's market, a buyer's market, seller's market.
Yeah,
They get to choose.
Yeah, a lot of them do have very rigid kind of boundaries in which the regions that they operate. So if this is a little unique in that they can touch a number of them differently, but it all depends on, a lot of people have a lot of uncertainty with the economy. And I think we think that's what is the lack of response from our meeting requests is that there isn't a plan yet. That is just really, month by month, we're still trying to figure out what's happening. So we're trying to navigate all of that when we're doing our planning.
Well, I completely believe that, Brian. Is the city hosting an event this year?
Yes, we are sponsoring the Crosby reception. That is attended by everyone that is from Colorado attends that. So that's a great place for us to get in front of all the brokers and even the ones that aren't operating in Commerce City to do the same thing. Is to say, this is Commerce City. We are here. We're looking for these businesses. So yes, we are sponsoring that reception again.
Wonderful. Very popular event. And there are others that the mayor and Councilmember Kim will be going to as well and have the same opportunity to talk with people, including developers. There were a lot of developers at one of the events last year, which was very enlightening, talking to them about their impressions of Commerce City.
There are a total of 9 of those receptions that give those opportunities over those days.
Right.
So there's a lot of logistics that are involved to get everyone where they need to be, but still get to every one of them to get those interactions.
Well, this sounds fantastic. Really appreciate it. You did such a good job last year, and I know that this year is going to be even more successful as these relationships get solidified, and wishing you a good, safe trip.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Councilmember Teeter.
Yeah. How many businesses did we bring into our community from last year's experience?
We didn't land any of them. We didn't land because it takes a lot much longer lead time to get them to come and commit. 2 years ago is when we were able to help re-tenant the Baskin Robbins store, and that's how we got the Dunkin' Donuts. And then we did work behind the scenes to help the Dollar Tree that opened up off 104th and Chambers. We met with staff at the ICSC conference 2 years ago to unjam some issues they were having as well. So kind of chipping away at it. Ziggy's was completely here local. And then we just continue to reach out to those categories. We reach out to grocery stores, entertainment concepts, hospitality, all of those, and continue to let them know that we have these opportunities. And we're hoping this year we'll have more response because we have more solidified plans than we did before, specifically along the Tower Road corridor. So we have something to sell them. That's one of the challenges you have. If you don't have anything to sell them, it's a hard conversation to get started because in their minds, they're just like, well, yeah, that's great. You have a city, you have a population, but where do we see ourselves in the community?
Wouldn't be so much as selling something other than letting them know what we have available.
Yep. Yep, and that's what we're really trying to do with all of the outreach that we do for the conference, which we reach out to roughly anywhere from 75 to 90 different, entities that are attending and ask for them to consider us and, ask for their time. And then we continue that on a regular basis throughout the year at other events and conferences as well.
Councilmember Douglas, then Councilmember Dukes.
So I just wanted to thank you for your obvious hard work and your preparation for all of this and how you continue to build and understand the meaning of relationships and developing those. And I just want to commend you for the hard work that you've done and your persistence in this. You believe in Commerce City, and that's obvious. And really appreciate that. So I just wanted to let you know that. And I wish you great success in this. And I think something is going to come of this time around. I just feel it.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Dukes.
Thank you. So a couple questions, one question and then one maybe request. The first of what I heard you say is that now that we have a comprehensive plan, is that?
Economic Development Strategic Plan?
Yeah, is that why it's more sellable now versus last year? Is that what you're saying?
No, it's because developers have given us actual conceptual site plans that didn't exist before. Some were on hold for whatever reason, some on Tower Road. Now we've been given permission to promote those. Others have evolved into a new plan. So they have new site plan orientations that are possible.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of the continuum of the project itself.
That makes sense. And I guess it's a bigger question. It might be for a city manager and for the team. It's just going back to Councilmember Teeter's question, how many did we land? And I guess I'm curious, last year, there was a lot of conversation about like the relationships and the walk, the number of steps and things of that nature, which I think is needed. However, how do we know what success look like at a conference like this? Absent of nailing and solidifying a big business because it takes relationship, but how do we know this is successful in terms of leads or, because if I would be really I don't wanna say concern, but more around like, I get the idea of relationships. We're gonna go out and meet a lot of people, have a lot of events like last year. But what do we need to look at to say, is it feedback that they give us to say, okay, here's what's the barrier? I'll be curious on that. Is it like honest conversations that we can present or share with us, or is it the number of contacts? Because I'm trying to get at what success look like for us.
I think, having gone a handful of times, I think a win is being able to walk away from a conversation that leads to an actionable next step.
Okay.
Meaning that the 10 to 15-minute conversation really is that elevator pitch that you've left behind some engaging information, whether it's the demographics, whether it's the growth, whether it's the story, that's left them with something that they can take back to their committee, take back to their ownership, take back to their investors, and say there's a there that meets with what we want, that meets with our philosophy, that we need to go out and investigate. And that to me is a win. To whether or not it happens within the next 3, 6, 8 months, because nothing happens overnight. But if we're building that foundation of credibility about our process, about our people, about our politics, about that we can get through the good and the bad, because there's always going to be ups and downs when going through a development deal, whether it's on our side or theirs, and that we're able to stay in the game, whether it's, like I said, from soup to nuts, that is a win. And it all starts in that first engagement with them in that conversation. So if it leads to a follow-on conversation of truly exchanging of information, to me, is how we've been able to build that relationship. It's how we've been able to build, whether you like it or not, it's how we've been able to build a strong relationship with Quick Trip, to where it started with 1 store and now we're up to 6 or 7 stores. It's how we've had a strong relationship with Dunkin' that started in 1 store off 104th, but they're looking at other stores. I know you're chuckling, but
No, I'm just shocked at the number, 6 or 7 Quick Trips in Commerce City.
yeah, 6 or 7.
They haven't come.
Well, and sorry, I still have my time here. City manager, thank you for explaining that. That's,
Yeah.
a follow-up to that, but go ahead, finish
But-
please, and I have a follow-up.
But Quick Trip generates $1 million in sales tax for us. But the whole point, as I say that, is that relationship started with us out in ICSC, same thing with Dunkin'. And it's been able to carry us forward so that they have a relationship. Same thing with the Carlson Evergreen Company. It started with us in ICSC, to where they started with 1 property, they now have 3. And that's why that's a win for us, is because we built that relationship that's lasted over years.
Thank you for answering the question. I guess the last one I have is there a way, so we're going through the process of modernizing our economic incentive package. We're looking at that as an option. We're looking at addressing a study session, addressing our impact fees, and also the sprinklers and things of that nature. Is there a way we can get a litmus test at this conference around, are we, as you talk with folks, are we headed in the right direction if we make these changes, if we make it more, I guess I'm getting at, more attractive to be here? And are these the right things that we're thinking about doing in place? Is there a way to get that type of conversation?
I would say you don't want to speculate on where you're going. You'd want to share with them where you're at.
Okay.
And what you have that puts you in a competitive position to bring them in.
Okay.
So saying that this is where we're going is saying, okay, you're betting on the come, but I don't want to bet on that until I know that you've actually got it secured. So when we have those toolkits in place and we have it a part of that package that they can scan, and then they can then include it into their pro forma, that's then a different discussion for them to be able to look at the potential return on investment or their internal rate of return.
Well, even if they say, like, I've heard Commerce say it's not business friendly, right? And they say this is why, impact fees, et cetera. Are you able, or would you be able to say, hey, we are looking at that, we're gonna try to make it, or do you feel like that's not where we go?
I think, you know, a prime example is where you're not business friendly. Well, we've improved the process to where it's 3 weeks, 2 weeks, 1 week. So we're one of the fastest development review and titling in the first. It's hard for me to be able to commit to you all to say, you're going to repeal this and this and this when it hasn't happened.
Okay.
And that becomes something of, I've committed the city to something that I can't say that you all have or haven't done.
Okay. Thank you.
I have several before I get to you. I have Councilmember Chacon, Mayor Douglas, and then Councilmember Douglas.
I'm glad I went to the Naleo thing last week. It was for Latino or Naleo. And one thing that they highlighted was looking at specific demographics within your city that can help highlight small businesses and density to help create not just big developments and bring in those big corporations, but also people it, if you will, with small, dense, small populations. One fact that they pointed out was this year from the GDP survey, Latinas are $1.3 trillion in the contributing economy. We have such a large Latina population here, things like that. How are we looking at our local community and trying to build that kind of density of not just large corporations and attracting that, but having that balance between density of small businesses, walkable distances, things that actually contribute to our community here. I could give all of you all the information, all the slides, everything that I learned about it, to tell you the truth, because I really think it would help us a lot given our population. And also to pull us out of that, I get tired of the stigma of Commerce City, that we are not friendly, that we don't want to work in certain spaces. But I think we have such a diverse population, it's how we're going to attract them. But we basically need to prioritize who we are first too in our identity. So I guess that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. What is our identity? What are our demographics? How can we look at that spending capital, and how can we people it with smaller businesses and those corporations to make it a dense space to also bring commercial development that's been asked, but also help with the other considerations of keeping our taxes in our own.
Yeah, I think there's been a robust conversation around that with the Small Business Task Force, and I think that's been highlighted to an extent in the report that was presented to you, and you'll probably have that more robust discussion of that when they come before you here before the end of the year. Discussion around identity, I think, is one that we've teased out to you all, even when we talked about the strategic plan discussion for economic development, is what does Commerce City want to be from an economic development perspective? Demographically, how we want to approach small business. I think you raise a very interesting but a very salient topic, and one that is obviously very at the forefront of our mind. And I know we've been trying to identify a multi-pronged approach and an attack to that. And I know JD and Stuart Meek and so forth through our Elevate Commerce City and through obviously our small business activities have been trying to identify different ways of trying to look at that across that broad cross section. That'll also come up as well through our small business task force efforts and some of that reporting out. I would say you had one more question in there, man, at the beginning of it.
The spending power, honestly, that's what really was eye-opening for me, even knowing about your demographics. I mean, Latinos are, just that population alone are the backbone of a lot of their communities and their household made decisions. So it broke down everything from your car to your local businesses, ended up being $1.3 trillion. Just contribution from that population. So how do we look at that local too?
Yeah, I can say I haven't looked at that further subset, but I can share this in the main. If we make 102 million in sales and use tax, 44 million of that comes from small business. So there's probably an attributable share of that small business that's being generated at a more finite demographic layer that we could probably take a cut at. And that's still informative to us, broad spectrum when you start taking a look at the different sectors that we have in Commerce City, and what does that mean for us? And then where is that happening within our city that we can then continue to support and to continue to help flourish? I don't have that data handy right now, but I can say it is something that we are trying to look at and to get a better handle on.
Thank you. Like I said, I could forward you guys all the info that we maybe make a study session about it, because I honestly think it would help a lot when we're talking about this.
Absolutely.
Councilmember Douglas.
So, one thing that we might want to consider, it's great to build a tax base, but we also have to build a quality community. And that doesn't mean we overload with things that we already have plenty of, because we're getting feedback from our constituents that, whoa, what's going on here? And so we really we've got to do some strategic planning on how we build a quality community. And then as far as like lowering things beforehand, use that as a bargaining tool, use that as a tool to negotiate. Don't lower everything to think that you're going to attract people. Keep it high, and then you use it as a negotiating tool. So just some things that I think should be considered here.
Thank you, Mayor Douglas.
Thank you. Yes, just hearing some of the different suggestions. I know there was presentations last year, and then we had some site selectors have come to Colorado. We have attended as Commerce City, and a lot of them are not looking for incentives. They're looking at especially primary employers. They're going to bring their employees there. They want to make sure that we have good schools for their families, places for what's the closest place to shop. Those some of their concerns. And then I know it was said about sprinkler systems and all that, but when it comes to the retailers and commercial infrastructure, they have to have those in there for safety reasons. That's not something that they can't build without. But no, when it comes to these conferences, it was really nice to hear some of the retailers and prospects say, hey, Commerce City is on our list. And some of them wanted to be able to put in their products in the north and the south. And we're also looking at retailers and opportunities that are very unique. And it may something that has worked in the East Coast and the sunny states, but they have not entered into the Midwest market. And those are our niches that we're looking for. So it is a great opportunity to have those conversations and just to hear them actually tell us, hey, we already have you on the map. We just need a place to go. So just wanted to put that in there that and Councilmember Kim, you will see that firsthand and see some of these retailers I've never even heard of. And there was a shoe retailer that wanted to be here, and it wasn't based on a large demographics. They were actually looking at a smaller demographics because it was their niche. And they're talking like 14,000 people or so, and because they sell shoes. So it was just a small shoe store, but it was athletic wear. I'm sure athletic shoe wear, and they were keen on youth and young adults. So wanted to add that. Thank you.
Yeah, there are, when we gave our summary after the trip last year, some of it couldn't be in detail, but certainly we had information on the restaurant outlook. We did meet with Golden Corral, but they have to have 450 customers per night in order to bring their restaurant into Commerce City. They said we just weren't big enough, for example. Sprouts wanted traffic counts. We brought that back and said that wasn't a meeting. That just happened to be somebody that we spied in the in the hallway. So is the card that you're providing going to include traffic counts on our roads as well?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. And regarding doing business in Commerce City, the reasons were consistent and reliable permitting process was a priority. The nature of political discourse was a priority. Levels of crime was a priority. And for some, well, I'm not even gonna bring it up. It was such a difficult conversation a few months ago. So anyway, thank you very much. I think that it's gonna be a great conference. You have all the tools to help everyone be successful. So I am affirming on your behalf. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Good luck on y'all going.
We have still more things to do here. Two more before we get to the special meeting tonight. First quarter 2025 financial report. Oh, would anyone like to take a break? Oh, there you just arrived. Well, we won't take a break since you just arrived.
If the body wants to, we're happy to wait.
We'll wait till later.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was looking for the actual PDF. It's-
The PowerPoint,
Not the PowerPoint. We had a PDF of the actual report. I was gonna spend more time on the report. Explaining the content and making sure council was familiar with the new format. I can pull it off the agenda. Sorry. There we go. Sorry about that. Perfect. This is an attachment in your packet.
Okay, thank you. And I want to announce that Teresa Wilson, our Director of Finance, is giving the presentation. Okay, now you can keep going.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Mayor
you.
Pro Tem. First, I wanted to introduce the staff that I have with me that really partnered together to develop this new quarterly report format. I have Valerie Price, our Deputy Finance Director, Ken Keeley, our Tax Manager, and Chris Johnson, our Budget Manager. So we worked together to develop this new quarterly report format, which we hope you like. We want to go through it and explain the content and make sure you're comfortable with it and answer any questions you have about any of the content. And since this is a brand new format, we also welcome your feedback on how we might continue to improve upon this and make it even better for the second quarter. So on the first page, I wanted to hit on the key takeaways. The revenues of the general fund are on track to meet the projected budgeted amounts. License and permit revenue is trending higher than budgeted due to a building permit issued for a large one-time construction project. Charges for services revenue is also trending ahead of budget due to higher than expected plan check and zoning board fees and community development, as well as higher than expected programmatic revenues from the rec centers and PRG. Investment earnings were budgeted at a conservative level and are trending higher than anticipated. So the table on this first page, and I know you have it on your screens in front of you as well, but I wanted to explain the format of the table to make sure you all are comfortable with it. So the first column lists the revenue and expenditure categories. The second column lists the 25 amended budget amount, and that's as of the end of the first quarter, so 3/31 of 25. The next column, oh, yes, absolutely, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
There we go. Thank you.
Of course.
If that pops back up, let me know, because the cursor traveling. The next column lists the actuals as a percent of budget to let you know how much
of the budgeted revenue has been earned through the end of the first quarter, or how much of the expenditure budget has been expended as of the end of the first quarter. And then the final column provides the same data through the end of the first quarter of 24 to give an indication of, is 25 trending ahead or behind last year? So that is the format of the columns. And so if you look at the license and permits row, we have a budget for license and permits revenue of just over 4.7 million for the entire year of 25. Through the end of first quarter of 25, we've earned a little over 1.5 million of that $4.7 million budget. So we're currently sitting at 32% that we've earned of that revenue compared to budget. And if you compare it to last year, the 1.1 million, we're about 360,000 higher than we were this time last year. Does that make sense for a comparison? So we thought it was important to compare where we are at the end of the first quarter to budget, as well as do a year-over-year comparison. So that's what we're trying to achieve here. Similarly, if you look at charges for services, an amended budget of about 7.9 million, we've collected 2.9 million as of the end of the first quarter, which is about 37% of budgeted revenue. Compared to last year's 2.1 million, we're about 749,000 higher. So that's how to review and interpret this data for each row. Are there any questions about that?
The investment earnings is significant, the 80%.
Yes, and as you can imagine, the markets have been pretty crazy. We had a couple very low interest rate years, and we're coming out of that. We had a high interest rate year last year. And so far this year, interest rates are really, it depends on the day. So we try not to be too optimistic about interest revenue because we have zero control over the markets, and we don't want to budget that revenue too high and miss the mark. So we're pretty conservative with that revenue stream. But so far this year, it has been a pretty decent interest rate year overall, but they are continuing just to fluctuate by the day.
Can imagine.
Are there any other questions about that table?
The mayor has a question.
Yeah, oh, yes, I'm sorry, Mayor Douglas.
Oh, you're great. Thank you. So we're reading this. It says ending fund balance
Yes,
right now is $107 million.
that's the beginning fund balance for 2025. So the 107 million at the end of.
I'm sorry, 104 million.
Yes, that's what we're at for as of 3/31 at the end of first quarter of 25.
Okay. So at the end of 2024, we had a fund balance of $1.7 million, right? Almost 1.8.
Yes, 107 million. Yep, almost 100.
All right. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we used about 2.9 million of fund balance to balance the 2025 budget. That doesn't mean we'll actually use it. That's what we use to balance the budget on a budget basis. As the year unfolds, we'll know what that actual is. So this is my favorite part of the whole report. I think this table is really key. So perfect. I will keep going. We included some good notes there at the bottom too that we'll update every quarter. So at the top of the next page, this graph compares general fund revenues, so total general fund revenues, taxes, fees, forfeitures, all revenue types in the general fund, a 3-year historical comparison so that you can get an idea of how revenues are trending. In the future, we'll put the total revenue amount above the bar here. We missed doing that this time, but I think that'll be a nice enhancement for next quarter. But the 24 total that we ended 24 in the general fund was a little over 142 million. So revenues in total continue to trend up. In the stacked bar graph fashion, it does show, you can look at the different colors and see taxes compared to investment earnings, compared to charges for services. So And we're happy to answer any questions about that, but this is just meant to provide a high-level picture of our key revenue categories and how they compare over a 3-year history.
Good question, ma'am. So thank you. This is a great graphic to show the 3-year history. But it was my understanding, or is there a way, because 2024, are we getting back to like 2021 numbers or levels, right?
Absolutely. So we did not truly experience a revenue decrease in COVID.
Okay.
So we had one plateau and then we had another plateau of revenue. And when we went from 21, I think it was I'm trying to remember if it was from 20 to 21 or 21 to 22, we actually had a significant revenue increase. And until we had a couple more years of history after that, we didn't know if that was an anomaly or not,
Yeah.
but that higher level plateau stuck.
Okay.
And we haven't had a decrease since then. So, knock on wood that, our revenue fortune continues, but COVID did not really hurt the city.
I guess my question is, sorry, go. So looking at 2024, is that our watermark, or is that getting back to where we were earlier on, like in 2020, 2021, or is 2024 the watermark right now?
Yeah, we're at least 20 million higher on average a year than we were then.
Okay.
So, I don't think we're gonna see another big increase, because from one year to the next, like from 21 to 2, we saw a good $20 million jump in sales and use tax revenue. And a lot of that was due to the Wayfair decision with online sales that we were able to start capturing, but we've not seen that drop.
Okay.
And I doubt we're gonna see another big jump like that in the foreseeable future. We might have another really great year at some point. It's really hard to predict, but at the time when that happened, I thought that might be an anomaly because I thought that was pretty incredible, like coming out of COVID.
Yeah.
And we've not dropped from that.
Thank you.
So that's really great for our city. So are there any questions about that graph? The bar graph, this is 2024 revenues only, so it's just a single year comparison in a pie chart format. But this shows the key categories of revenues, so you can see where most of our revenue on an annual basis comes from. I do need to point one error out on here. We included the wrong audit revenue amount here. We picked up the wrong row in our pivot table, and I apologize for that. We can correct this and send you an amended version of this. But this 434,000 should really be 4.9 million. And it should have been backed out of this 83 million. This should really be 78. The total 116 million is correct. But those two categories were askew, and I apologize for that. I wanted to point that out. It doesn't change the overall big picture much. 105 million of our total general fund revenues out of that 116 million come from all of our sales and use tax categories. We're starting to track those by vehicle use tax, sales and use tax, audit revenue, and building use tax, because some of those use tax categories are very meaningful by themselves. So we're starting to track those so that we can better analyze those segments of our use tax more closely moving forward. So that's why you see them broken out separately here on this pie chart. But in total, of that 116 million, 105 million is sales and use tax together.
The 83 million in sales and use tax, because we pay sales tax, but we don't pay use tax as individuals. Businesses pay use tax, correct?
Typically, yeah, contractors, individuals who use equipment to perform work within the city limits.
Would it be possible to break that down so that we can see sales tax separately from use tax?
And that's what we're doing here. So if you look at this building use tax category, this yellow one, that is that construction related building use tax. And then we also have vehicle use tax in blue here broken out separately.
Okay, I may not be good at tables, but I don't see how you can have a category within a pie chart that is already reflected in another part of the pie chart?
It's not duplicated.
Okay, so how do you break apart sales and use tax as two separate categories?
We could break it down, it's just not done in this pie chart.
Pardon me?
But we can break it down into greater detail moving forward.
That's all.
But previously, we were putting it into one big bucket. But moving forward, we will be breaking it out.
Thank you, that would be great. I didn't know as much as I know now about use tax,
Sure.
but now that I'm on the 27J use tax committee, it becomes far more important to me than it was a year ago. So, although I have had constituents, of course, who are concerned with their small businesses, that they can't afford our use tax. So I know that that is a revenue stream that we rely on. Now, how much of it is part of our entire revenue picture? And that would be really useful to know.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Mayor Douglas, did you have another question? Are you?
Yes, well, I was gonna wait till, I'm sorry, I was gonna wait till the next slide because that shows the first quarter of sales and use. So I won't spoil it. I'll wait till, I'll wait. Thank you.
Councilmember Teeter?
Yeah, on that use tax, how much of that goes towards fixing our roads?
It's all general fund revenue, and we do make general fund revenue transfers to the capital expenditures fund to help with CIP projects, which would include road projects. We transfer a minimum of about 3 million a year.
And so that would be just about the trucks that buy fuel in our area pay a use tax. And plus there's some that don't buy fuel that are in our area that pay a use tax. Is that correct?
Well, the fuel tax is different than the use tax.
Okay.
The use tax, the best thing to think of the use tax is it's the reverse side of the sales tax. So if for some reason you didn't pay a legally imposed sales tax at the time of a purchase and you used or consumed an item within the city, it becomes subject to use tax. What you're discussing is dealing with the gasoline tax and the highway fund. That's a different revenue stream.
Okay, so if I got a trucking business and I own trucks, it's a use tax that I have to pay. Just by owning the trucks and.
Possibly, yes. It depends if they're IRP'd, then you may not have to pay the tax. It gets a little bit more complicated in the transportation industry.
I guess I'm having a hard time figuring out how we're gonna collect this tax over the electric vehicles coming in. They're not buying fuel, when they buy the vehicle, do they?
Yes, when they buy the vehicle itself, they would pay a sales tax at the time of purchase. Usually that's picked up, so if you were to buy an individual, was to buy a electric car, you would pay the sales tax when you registered your car. And that would be picked up under the vehicle use tax. So that's basically the tax you're paying when you go through Adams County.
So that's buying any product,
Yep.
there's a use tax.
Yep, and then we would also collect sales tax probably on the electricity that you're purchasing through Excel or United Power.
Thank you.
Any other questions about this particular chart?
I think Mayor Douglas now officially.
I think he's waiting for this one. So,
I'm waiting till she presents the page and then I will call on them. But I'll switch seats with anybody who wants to sit here.
Absolutely. And if I miss something, because I'm looking down, just
All right, thank
stop me. So this graph is a quarter over quarter comparison. So it shows the first quarter of each year for 22, 3, 4, and 5. And it shows our sales and use tax revenue comparing the 3.5% base sales and use tax compared to our 2K 1%, that's in purple. So this just shows that trend on a quarterly basis too. When you compare the first quarter of each year, we're definitely still we're trending up there for 2025. And it's important to note that businesses pay sales tax a month in arrears. So for a first quarter comparison, this is really just showing taxes paid for January and February. We catch that up at year end with the year end accrual. We always get our 12 months in the year, but we don't do an accrual on a monthly basis. So businesses remit sales and use tax by is it the 20th or 21st of the month for the previous month?
Correct. The 20th, if it falls on a weekend, then it's the next business day.
So sales and use tax payments that vendors and businesses remit this month in May is really for April. Okay.
April sales.
Yeah. Perfect. All right.
Mayor Douglas?
Yes, thank you for being on this page. I did see that marijuana tax, which includes other taxes, decreased 17.25%. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Basically, in a nutshell, what we're seeing is the marijuana industry is contracting. And so we are seeing the revenues decrease exponentially in that industry. By other taxes, we also mean that there's an additional to our regular sales tax. There's an extra marijuana tax that we collect. And we also will see the trickle down marijuana tax collected from the state decrease, because if the total sales drops, then all the revenue drops. And so basically the numbers is confirming what we're seeing in a national trend, which is the marijuana industry is contracting, mostly because a lot of other states now have legal marijuana.
I see. Okay. And this is a good segue. This is the first quarter, so not saying sales and use, but on the 1% sales tax, that could end up being at least, say the sports analogy, it could be $16 million at the end of the year, just on the 2K dollars. And then also wanted to touch on the electric vehicles, that every year someone has electric vehicle in Colorado, the registration actually goes up because they're calculating a use tax, almost like a energy use, but it's tacked on every year when you have a vehicle. So even if you have a vehicle for 10 years, as that goes down, the extra, because it's all electric, you're going to continue to pay up. It's going to reach a certain point, but it will stay there. It won't go down. Thank you.
Moving on to the next graph. This graph shows a historical first quarter comparison by industry for 2022 through 2025. So I know it's small on the screen, but this is available online and on your computers as well. But this is sales and use tax broken down by auto and transportation, construction, manufacturing, marijuana, vehicle use tax, restaurants, retail, which includes online sales, utilities, wholesale, and other. Other includes medical offices, agricultural, arts and entertainment, and education services. They'd be too small to represent each of those by themselves, so we rolled those together and other. But as you can see, retail is the largest, and it is definitely trending up on a quarter by quarter comparison. And manufacturing is also pretty high. Construction, which can ebb and flow based on the market and economy, tends to be a little bit volatile. That area performed really well in the first quarter of 25. Largely thanks to one very large construction project permit that was pulled during the first quarter. So that was a good thing for that financial reporting period, but wouldn't be the case necessarily every quarter. I wouldn't expect this to quadruple by the end of the year necessarily. So are there any questions about that table? You all have asked for more data presented by industry. This was our attempt to try and summarize that. So we did hear that. So hopefully this helps. Perfect. Any questions about that? All right. So getting into general fund
Sorry, I
revenue.
do have
I'm
a
sorry?
question. So,
Yes.
so this retail, based on our economic development update, this is also include online, right? This is online
The
retail.
retail is online.
Okay, and based on that presentation, it was mostly online that we are getting a lot of bump from, right? Is that right? Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, yeah, of course.
So it's basically Amazon.
Yeah, Amazon, Wayfair. So it looks like, so from this, it's really a lot of online retail and then construction is. And the construction is based on a pull permit earlier this year for a
That
larger.
big blue line, yes.
So if, go ahead.
With online retailers, we've actually seen the number of license go up exponentially. When we first started doing online filing back in 2019, we had less than 4,000 accounts. I have almost 9,000 accounts. And the bulk of them has been small mom and pop websites that end up getting licensed and remitting. A lot of it has to do with what's called SUTs at the state level and the fact that they're meeting a certain threshold of sales within the state of Colorado. And then they are required to collect Commerce City as well as everybody else in Colorado. And so that's the biggest spike that I've seen over the last couple of years is online retailers. We've also seen an increase in the marketplace, and that would be your Amazons.
I would love to put a pin in that too, to think about it later on with our economic development team around small businesses. How do we help small businesses get more of a footprint online too? So if you said there was a spike in licensing already, and it might be small businesses out of our city. So let's put a pin in that as we think about how we support more small businesses versus like the old model is like going down to a small business, picking up, but it sounds like that's shifting for us. Right, and maybe there's a way to connect.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest growth has been not necessarily businesses, they're all businesses located mostly outside the state. But because of the internet, they're able to sell to whomever, anywhere.
Yeah.
And then they just ship their one or two products. But what's really triggering it is the changes at the state level that's requiring anybody with over $100,000 in sales to the state of Colorado is now required to collect and remit our tax. And most of them are filing through the state portal, which automatically feeds into our accounting system for tax.
Oh, so licenses are from our city that you're saying increase, or is that from outside?
Yeah, well, whenever they get licensed through the state portal,
Okay,
our
okay.
system has to give them an account. So I want to differentiate between a business license and a sales and use tax
Yeah.
account. And the reason we have to give them a unique account is because I have to keep track of their filing. So if they give us $10 or they give us 10,000, I need to be able to pull up that company and see what they reported and then what they paid. And so that's why we're seeing this massive spike. And it's all, the good news for me is that the largest percentage of this growth is automated. And so it comes in from the state portal. The system says, hey, there's not an account for this company. And so it automatically creates one.
It's good.
Does that make sense?
All right, the next graph at the top of the next page shows 2024 sales and use tax revenue by industry. So this is just for the year 2024. And as you can tell from this graph, retail is the largest at 26%. And automotive and transportation at 12% is our second, which is about half, less than half of what retail is. So this just shows 2024 sales and use tax revenue by industry, but it gives you that by industry load for how we landed last year. And I can't, Mayor Pro Tem, I can't tell if Mayor Douglas has a question at all.
Mayor Pfeffer.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate that. I was gonna ask about the Wayfair lawsuit. I know several years back when you go online to order, it didn't ask about the sales tax in your state, which now they do. I think that has helped out a lot because when you purchase outside state of Colorado online, it always includes the tax. And I know there's like you said, automatically, if they're registered, it will show that extra tax you're gonna pay here in Colorado, which I appreciate that. And then as far as car sales, vehicle use tax increase, it was high in was it higher in 2024 because of the incentives? Because, you know, some of those are going away. So do you see the vehicle sales going down, especially with the tariffs involved?
Yeah, I can't speculate why there was an increase quarter over quarter. I mean, it could be a number of reasons, but yeah, I would think that part of it is due to a spike. People concerned that the price of cars will be higher in the future, so they're buying today. But I don't know the exact reason why.
All right, thank you.
This next graph is another stacked bar graph format comparing the first quarter for 4 years from 22 through 25, looking at building use tax. So it's really breaking down the key segments of use tax into building, vehicle, and general use tax, which is everything that's not building or vehicle. But from this graph, you can tell for 25, that's that one really large construction permit that was pulled, why this blue segment for the first quarter of 25 is so large. But you can compare those three categories on a quarter over quarter basis to see how we're trending there over the last 4 years. So general use tax is trending down a little in the purple. The yellow or gold section for vehicle use tax kind of trended up and is appearing to hold steady. But then that one really large permit here is our boon in the blue section here. So is it helpful to see use tax broken down into these key categories? Perfect. All right, moving along, getting into general fund expenditures. This graph shows a 3-year history by year. So all of our expenditures broken down into the key expenditure categories, showing, they're listed up here for reference, but showing salaries and benefit information compared to materials and supplies, purchase services and charges, which are contract arrangements that we have for services the city receives, as well as our internal allocations for our internal service funds, such as IT, fleet, and facilities. Capital outlay, which is largely related to parks and rec equipment, and then our debt service payments. So these are the categories you see in the stacked bar chart to see how those are trending from 1 year to the next and a 3-year expenditure history here.
Director Wilson,
Yes.
what is the difference between salaries not position budgeted and salaries?
So salaries for full-time staff are, for the staff in this room, like any regular FTE, full-time equivalent staff that work, you know, a normal 40 hours, 40 plus sometimes. And then salaries for part-time staff and contract workers, those would be our VHEs, our variable hour employees, and any kind of contract staff or contracts we have with vendors that help augment staff would fall in that category. And then employee benefits would be the city paid benefits for employees.
Okay, I missed that. Who is salaried, not position budgeted? Are those temporary people or seasonal?
Yes, the VHEs,
Yeah.
the variable hour,
VHEs,
the variable hour employees, and we can make that note more clear. to
All
make
righty,
that-
thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No.
Perfect. Any other questions about this data? Okay, perfect. So on the next page, we have 2024 general fund expenditures totaling 104.9 million broken down by category. So this just shows, similar to the corresponding revenue graph we had, we're showing the 2024 expenditure categories and what makes up the largest, which of course, as a service industry, the bulk of our expenses go to staff that provide the services. But that's how that is broken down, with salaries and benefits comprising the most. Below that is a quarter over quarter comparison, the same data broken down in a stacked bar graph fashion. So showing those same expenditure categories for each year and a quarter over quarter comparison. So you can see expenses are trending up, as we saw with revenues kind of ticking up too. So we're living within our means, but our costs are definitely not decreasing. So any questions about that?
Mayor's got his hand up.
Oh, Mayor Douglas.
Thank you. Appreciate the presentation you're giving. I'm looking at the purchase service and charges. Are those like outside services, like contracted?
Yes.
Okay. And is there any way to break that down to where those are, you know, public works, you know, police? And, you know, in the future, not now, but if that could be labeled out.
Break it out in the notes.
Yeah, we could add some notes to kind of break that down by department.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions? All right. Moving on to the capital expenditures fund. Within this report, we only hit on the general fund, which is the city's main operating fund, and the capital expenditures fund, which has the bulk of the city's expenditures and activity. So we present, I'm not going to go column by column like I did before, but it's the same format for the capital expenditures fund, comparing actuals to budget and also comparing to the first quarter over quarter compared to last year for revenues and expenditures. And then we do have a graph at the bottom that shows capital expenditures by department for the first quarter. And it should be no surprise, but Public Works is definitely our heaviest hitter when it comes to capital projects, followed by Parks and Recreation. And then we have a similar graph, the stacked bar graph format, comparing quarter over quarter for the last 4 years, comparing first quarter data together. So first quarter of this year, our capital project managers have definitely been busy putting those dollars to good use and completing projects and initiating projects. And we worked with our capital project managers to provide some key highlights for first quarter activity here regarding 96th Avenue widening, 88th Avenue widening, and some planning efforts going on with corridor studies and the transportation master plan. So those highlights are in the narrative down here. So our plan would not be to spend as much time walking through the content of the format of this report every quarter moving forward, but I thought it was really important to do that this time since this is a brand new format. And I wanted to make sure you all were comfortable with the format and the content and knew what you were looking at. But if you are pleased with this report, we will make those enhancements that we talked about based on your comments and continue this on a quarterly basis moving forward. So hopefully we've hit the mark well on that.
Really helpful. Very thorough. Thank you. Councilor Dukes.
Thank you. And I know you mentioned you may not walk through it each quarter, but I think it's actually really helpful and the time will serve to do that.
Absolutely. And we're happy to do that. I just didn't want to bore you guys and repeat information with it, but we are happy to go into this much detail. And we'll always refresh the narrative and the highlights and the comments every quarter based on that quarter's activity.
Yeah, and I think it's time well served as our role is looking at the budget as a city council. That's our primary goal for a city council member is to be looking at city dollars. But I just to commend you all for the work. This is great. I've seen a number of budget reports and this is clear, it's concise, and I understand there's a lot of information to try to convey. But I think anyone who logged in or who's online or if this is posted, folks can understand this. And so kudos to you guys, because I know that's not an easy task So thank you.
Yeah, we live and breathe this data, so we try to put ourselves into your shoes and really think about what you'd like to see. So that's what we've really attempted to do here. We've also included a short PowerPoint presentation. The content in the PowerPoint presentation really focuses on economic trends at the state and federal level. So I encourage you to take a look at this too. We provide some high-level information for the first quarter on inflation, consumer spending, the labor market, wages and income. So we'll continue to do that too, but that information is here for reference in a short PowerPoint and then the actual PDF document of the report that we just walked through. So
Thank you, team. Mayor Douglas has the final word.
Thank you. During the retreat, we had these questions about what do we want to see, and I think I wanted to check all the boxes. So, and I appreciate it because this is one of the things I was asking about early on, before we get to August and September. This really helps out. I mean, this really illustrates where our dollars are at after the first quarter. And that is high. This is, even though you didn't get to break it down as much as you had opportunity to, this still makes it high level and actually bring information we currently didn't have. And even when we have our presentation to retreat last year, we didn't take enough time to actually dive into these different areas. So this right here, the way it's structured, very, very helpful. And I think our residents are going to enjoy because it's actually the way it's laid out. It's more in layman's terms and not in micro and macro. So this is great. So I really appreciate everybody who's part of this, and going forward, you just keep doing this. I believe this is going to be one of those that we can identify where key areas are needed and where the funding is. So thank you.
perfect. Well, we are currently scheduled to bring you the second quarter report in August. So we look forward to bringing that to you, and that'll be a timely look at the first half of the year in a cumulative fashion. And that'll be really timely for the budget discussion to unfold in August and September. So we will.
Thank you very
bring
much,
that
Director
forward.
Wilson and Financial Services team.
Absolutely. You guys work. Thank you so much.
We'll so proud of you guys for putting out.
Next.
All righty. We now have Brittany Rodriguez, who is the Senior Assistant City Clerk. And she's going to lead the discussion on City Council meeting date.
Yeah, good morning, or good afternoon, everyone. Hello, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Again, y'all seen me a few times already, so I won't go too into detail, but on here, we're just gonna discuss our council meeting schedule and how holidays affect that schedule throughout the year. Just to begin with this, a motion was made at the February 3rd meeting, to bring forward this study session discussion. We're here to provide some alternatives for all the meetings that get canceled due to city holidays. I'm going to discuss the findings of how many meetings we've canceled for about the last 7 years that I've looked into, and options that our office is gonna suggest y'all take to reschedule those meetings. Just to show, I did some research with about 7 different cities in the Denver metro area. I reached out to the city clerk's offices in those cities there. Surprisingly, a lot of them actually do reschedule their meetings. Only about 3 of them keep the meetings canceled. The majority of them do approve a resolution in December for the following year to show their meetings that are gonna get canceled and then what they're gonna do about them or suggestions on rescheduling those meetings. I found a lot of resolutions of that they do in December, so I just put an example of the Broomfield resolution that I was looking through. Shows what holidays that their council meetings fall on and then suggestions on when they want to reschedule those. This is the meeting that get canceled. At a minimum, we know that there are four holidays that are gonna affect our council meetings. Those four at the top that are always on Mondays each year. But we do have up to 5 other holidays that could be scheduled on a Monday and also add to that cancellation list. For example, like in 2024, there was about 2 meetings that we added, 2 special meetings that we added on that year just because of holidays and trying to get through some city business that we really needed to do. In 2023, we added 3 special meetings to the list. In 2022 was the most that we added. We added 5 special meetings, but that was also due to a lot of rescheduled executive sessions that year. We had plenty of executive sessions about the city manager and the city attorney recruitment. So I'm not sure exactly how those holidays affected, but it definitely was time limits too. And then COVID, and there was COVID, and 2020 just got very wonky in general of meeting dates. To get into the options here, we have option A, which would be just to go as normal as we do, to not change the schedule. We definitely tend to have a lot of congestion in the Q1 and Q4 agendas for items like waiting to get seen or waiting to get passed. So that's generally what we deal with right now. We'll still see that as an impact to those agenda dates. The next option we have would be to amend the municipal code to set the council meeting date for any other day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Here's a list of the boards and commission meetings that would get affected by that, or just have to get restructured because we would amend the municipal code. We could then, at least be able to plan for that and plan around our council meeting schedule in general. Those boards and commission meetings are the ones that overlap in time that are always after 5 p.m. generally. Like on Wednesday for a senior commission, they tend to end at 5 p.m. or sooner, so shouldn't really affect our council meeting day, but still pretty close to meeting time. The impact of this we would have on those boards and commissions would also impact our court dates too. In council chambers, the municipal court holds the chamber as like a hold for 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. for those days. So that would kind of definitely affect staff setting up for council meetings, setting up the dais, doing any kind of AD checks, things that just we do beforehand. And that as well, changing the actual meeting date, we also still have the varying holidays that would still impact that schedule. Yes, it would correct the Monday holidays, but we still have those 5 other meetings that can affect this. The next option we have would be to convert the next study session. We would then also change the municipal code to automatically convert the next study session into a regular meeting after a holiday. For example, Martin Luther King Day in January, we would then automatically convert like the last study session into a regular meeting and add at least 4 more regular meetings a year. Yes, we would lose the study session time, but we would definitely have like a greater weight to present more items to you, but we definitely would get more city business done faster. We wouldn't have to wait for, I noticed that those times of year grants get on hold to be approved, other deadlines, things like that, mainly grants is what get affected, I've noticed. The last option we have would just to be to reschedule the meeting day for that week. As we would, if we would have a Monday holiday, we would reschedule it that Tuesday for the city council meeting. Yes, the impact of this one would then be it would still impact boards and commission meetings for that 1 week compared to like the whole yearly schedule. But again, we wouldn't know that that was coming. Staff would have a better chance to reschedule and schedule around our schedule. We'll definitely have the ability to continue business without any delays to the schedule, we wouldn't have that congestion of grants waiting or anything being held up by times. Being that we would have a meeting each week as normal. That's what I have for that one. Just we at the very end. Thank y'all. Thank y'all for your time, and this is.
Thank you very much,
options.
Brittany.
Mhm.
Councilor Chacon.
Mhm.
I am cool with option A and option B. I don't want to restructure all of the boards and commissions and all of, honestly, kind of possibly a headache that that's truly gonna be. At the same time, I don't want to delay. So I think that you guys have been way more efficient, especially finding out with us about what study
Could you
sessions.
speak up?
Oh, sorry,
I'm not.
option A and option D. I feel that option A is a good one because you guys have been a lot more diligent and a lot more efficient about planning with us the study session by priority. And I think that's helped alleviate a lot and move the process along this year more so that I've seen. But I could also understand rescheduling sometimes some of those study sessions to the next week if it really takes that time too. So that's why I'm kind of okay with the accommodation of option A. But yeah, that was it.
Councilor Kim?
Veterans Commissions, they changed it from a Thursday to Tuesday, just FYI. So Tuesdays where I'm at is every first and third Tuesday, I either have Veterans Commission, or if there is a Derby Review Board meeting, there is that. I'm gonna tell you right now, I am all against D on a Tuesday if I want to continue staying married. So that is my date night. That is the night that and I'm already given up the first and third Tuesday of the month.
I understand.
Anyone else? Councilor Teeter?
Yeah, I think we owe it to the community to have a meeting or canceling a meeting is not an option. But, I mean, other than Christmas and New Year's, in my opinion, and it's just not. I mean, your businesses where I worked at it for the last 52 years, and 24/7. I mean, and we got a lot of businesses, people in our community wanting to get business done through city council, and if there's a holiday, we need to figure out a way to work it in and get the business done. That's my opinion.
Who was it on this side you wanted to speak? Councilor Dukes.
The example Bright or Broomfield, so they meet in December and they give an updated list of all the changes, right, for the upcoming year?
Mhm.
And so you'll have it in advance, is that how that works?
In advance, yeah. So staff can anticipate for like those boards and commission meetings. They would be approved in December. And then they would have that for the rest of the year to work with.
And so would that be the option D then? Is that what that is showing? I mean, to Councilmember Kim's point, it's well taken, and I wonder, like, is that what you're saying? Like, we'll schedule them in advance and then we can all.
Option B is kind of a blend because it reschedules only to that Tuesday. Just so we lose like the one day from the city holiday.
I guess my question was with Broomfield, did they schedule to that Tuesday or did they just find a day of the week?
Brittany, can you go back to that slide?
Yeah.
Yeah, to D.
No, to your first slide that had the example of Broomfield.
I like doing the resolution, obviously.
Like, is it could find any day, that's what I'm hearing, like, is any day of the week based on the resolution? There's only 4 times a year that we'll have to do that?
Right, they just lay out those 4 times that a holiday or even a conference is impacting. If we have a lot of people out for a conference, then they even reschedule those days. But I'm pretty sure, I know Greeley was the one that schedules for the very next day. For example, we changed it to a Tuesday for that 1 week. I know Greeley did that, but I believe Broomfield, I believe they took away from their study session schedule.
Oh, okay. I would be okay, thinking about the study session and a mix of this resolution. So if we're able to look at, it's only 4 a year, which I thank you for sharing the data. Like, it's not as many I was worried, that was a lot more, but it's really only 4. And I'm okay with a mix of like looking at the four, looking at a resolution, and then preferring a study session if we can, as an extra day.
Definitely. I know currently we already do bring forth a resolution approving the city or the meeting dates a year, but we don't suggest any rescheduling at all. So we definitely could do that. And then that could get amended during the council meeting if y'all wanted to. Pick and choose a certain one, Christmas, things like that.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Councilmember Douglas?
Yeah, I kind of like to keep things fluid so that, you know, it's not exactly set in stone, but that we have the option to be able to make sure that business gets done. So if it ends up being that we take up a study session to get the business done, or we call a special meeting to do it, I mean, I think there's ways of making sure that we get our business done, but it's not something that we have to lay down our lives on. This is first.
Are you
And I thought you
suggesting, are you saying move to a study session, or are you saying move to another day that week, no matter?
Either
what?
one,
Either one.
whatever works.
Okay.
And then, that's kind of the way I operate my life anyway, so it's like you never know what's gonna happen. And I thought you would slip in some slides of Perla. And you did.
Just at the very end, like,
Oh,
thank you very much. I kept it short for you.
Mayor Douglas?
Yes, thank you. I like the fact that we have holiday days. I look at our employees too. Yeah, we may want to get business done, but our employees sometimes need a break. And federally, their families, they may be working a job where they get those holidays off as well. So I have to honor that. And as far as extra days, changing dates, I think Tuesday. I know Councilmember Kim said Tuesdays, but it's only a few times out of the year. I would see a Tuesday as a special meeting, and only if we need to get the, you know, if there's business to take care of, go ahead and schedule that. I mean, it's just a way of working around that, because it's not going to be every Tuesday now. We could just do it every Tuesday and then have to do it Monday, but then again, you follow those throughout the year. You're going to have those days fall on a Tuesday, so you can never avoid a perfect schedule. So I would say option wise, I would go with option B, because Wednesday is court and so is Thursday from 8 to 5. That makes it hard to do that conversion. So I would say if we're gonna do option B, we're looking at Tuesday, unless you guys want to do a Saturday. Thank you.
Yeah.
Just joking.
I agree with Councilmember Teeter. I think that since we're elected to do a job, we're hired to do a job. We have 4 nights per month, which isn't a huge demand on our time, other than those of us who take part in other boards and commissions or events or that kind of thing. I think it's important for us to get as much of our work accomplished as we can. We have a lot of complaints about working too late, and hopefully this way we won't have as many nights that go as late for us. So I am keen on making use of another day during the week. I mean, even, let's see, Memorial Day is coming up, but it won't conflict with any planning, won't conflict with any boards and commissions. None of them meet on the 4th Tuesday of the month. So just because some of them meet on Tuesdays, it doesn't mean that they all meet the same Tuesday. They're spread out over the course of a month, so it won't be that many to change. And then to do so, as opposed to, it sounds like all of these are codifying. Is that what the amend CCRMC means?
Yes, you
What
would,
if we do a resolution? Does that have to be codified also?
you would need to amend I think you would need to amend the code, because the CCRMC has regular meeting language that says that you
Oh,
all
okay.
meet for regular meetings, the first and third meetings, the first and third Monday of the month. So we need to change that.
Okay, and yeah, and I think that would be good to have a vote in December on on the dates so that everybody knows in going for the rest of the year, everyone can make those scheduling changes, and even if a board or commission has to skip a month, if it's better, because we do have business to conduct, it's hopefully helpful in the community. Yes, Brittany, you raised your hand.
I was gonna add as well, the cities that I reached out to, a lot of them do have it set out in the code that they have to have 2 regular meetings a month. So as for January, where a lot of times we hold 1 regular meeting a month, their code specifies that they do need to have more than 1.
Oh, that's interesting.
Mhm.
Now you're throwing a new wrinkle. That's not here, but that's good. That's
But
good.
that's
We
another
would,
reason
we
why.
would achieve the same end,
Mhm.
I think,
Yeah.
except for maybe December.
Mhm.
Okay, other than December. Alrighty, I think there is consensus on moving forward with doing another to make up for the ones that we have holidays on. Correct? Is that what I'm hearing from everyone?
So if I may, because my team's gonna be drafting the ordinance revision. So I think what I'm hearing is keeping Mondays, with the exception of when there's a holiday that's on a Monday, right? So do you want that to be automatically reverted to the next Tuesday? So the next day?
I thought we were gonna vote on it in December's, in the month of December each year.
Well,
That
it needs
was
to be, I believe it needs to be codified. So the code needs to be revised, so there needs to be an ordinance revision.
What is the resolution? in
That was
the-
an example of Broomfield, I believe.
That is correct, it's Broomfield. I think what Lee is saying, codifying something that gives specificity so that there is an ability to identify when and how to regularly identify that date when
Yes.
those meetings will.
The law right now is the first and third Monday of every month. So if we're changing that, we need to change the law.
Okay, and what is Broomfield voting on in December then?
I have no idea where that came from.
Right.
My suspicion is that there may be a sort of a provision in their regular meeting requirements that probably has something allowing them to change what the regularity is of their meetings. But I don't know. I didn't.
Okay,
not sure
maybe
that
we
came
can
from.
include that.
Yeah, we could. I mean, there is language also in our code. Where I was gonna highlight is we have language in our code that allows for flexibility of meetings. So we use the special meeting, right? We're doing it tonight. When there's a need to call a special meeting. But I would certainly strongly suggest if we're going to have moving forward a new date, we codify that new date.
Maybe the session in December then reveals what those dates are publicly, so they aren't just done as some sort of automatic process. There should be a separate process, in my opinion.
And just to keep this in mind, this December is gonna be a little bit unique because you will have a new council December 1st or December 8th. So you will have new voices at this potential table that may or may not necessarily be up to speed with this discussion or an agreement with dates. So depending upon where you come into that, you either may want to set this table or you may want to kick that conversation till after that body has been seated.
That there's only one seat that's termed out. So I'm not sure if that would make that much of a difference. We don't know what the outcome of the election will be. So, yes, Councilmember Dukes.
Just clarifying question. I hear we gotta codify it. But I guess I'm on the same page with Mayor Pro Tem and all the way around. Do we have to codify and say it moves to a Tuesday, or can you codify and say there's flexibility to have a date that week and then come back in December and vote on the dates? Because that'll be the
I
staff.
believe you need to codify them. We can go back and look, but the whole point of having it be in the municipal code is to provide the public awareness of when the meetings are, right?
Well, I guess codifying the next, does it have to be a Tuesday or can we?
No,
say-
it doesn't need to be the next Tuesday. It needs to be, so for example, Denver has in their code language, it's every Monday. With the exception of when those Mondays are holidays, it then goes to Tuesday because they've chosen the Tuesday. Right? What I'm saying is I would not recommend codifying it to say you meet on Mondays, the first and third Monday of the month for regular meetings, with the exception of holidays for a date to, or a day to be determined by council later. I would not recommend that.
Could you say for a date for the same, like something language around, if basically if it's a holiday, you'll find a day that.
I wouldn't recommend that.
And then come back in December
No,
and
I
list
mean,
out the
an
dates.
alternative option would be to have it be what the code is now. You cancel the meeting, which is what we do in December by resolution, and then you have a special meeting scheduled. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, whatever works for council that.
There's only four, only four meeting dates. No, yeah,
Minimum.
minimum four.
Yeah.
We should stay and kick the
Those
can.
other meeting or holidays could fall on that Monday, so we could have, Juneteenth off, 4th of July, those could fall on a Monday too.
Well, here's special meetings for the year in December, is that what I heard?
Yeah, you could do a resolution. She's suggesting a resolution in December, thereby scheduling the special meetings for the year, right? So you don't want to have gray area or gray language in the code for when you're meeting.
Well, because I think that's the compromise where you have the special meetings listed, we vote on that, so everyone knows these are the new
For the
meetings
year.
for the year.
As a special meeting.
But that wouldn't require a change to our code anyway, it would just be
Correct.
laid out a special meeting.
Correct.
But, does that make sense?
I don't want to skip it though. I mean, I don't want us to get to December and then go, oops, it didn't make the agenda.
True.
So it needs some
Can we do it earlier? Can we do it?
validity to it.
Yeah. Can we do it earlier, like November?
Well, how are you gonna make it a thing?
Well, because we'll know the holiday dates for 2026. And if we were to vote on it in November instead of December,
Right? How do you make sure it's on the agenda if it's not codified as far as?
You would call, the resolution would call the special meeting, so then we would know that on, the Monday that there's a holiday, council's agreeing to the resolution and it says it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday of that week. Everyone's aware that that's going to be a special meeting that's called. And you've approved it by resolution, so it's documented.
I give my honest opinion. I think we should honestly wait until the election too, and we should just do special meetings as we've kind of already been doing before we change. Not that I don't want to or reschedule, I just don't.
We'll do whatever you all want.
This is y'all's decision.
Okay, Mayor Douglas.
Yes, I mean, I think we're complicating things. As Lee stated, we already approved the cancellation of meetings for the year coming up. And so the changes could be done just the same. So and regardless who's in there, this is what we need to decide now so that going forward, this is how things are going to be done. Now, if that council decides then that they don't want it, yeah, things can change, but right now we need to make a decision. And I believe option B and what our city attorney Zarzeki stated, we should just go forward with that. Thank you.
Change meeting day always? That's what option B is.
Well, just on those 4 days for next year that we could reflect.
Option B as in boy says change the meeting day. It is to change it to either a Tuesday, Wednesday, or a Thursday as the official meeting day, not just on the holidays,
Oh, I'm sorry, option D.
but for
I'm
the
sorry.
full year.
Yes, I'm sorry, option D. Sorry about that.
D is in dog.
Yes,
Okay, all right, thank you.
sorry about that. Thank you. Thanks for
Alrighty.
clarification.
Thank you. Councilmember Kim.
I agree with Councilwoman Chacon. I think we should leave it as is because I mean, we're 7 months away before the new council gets in. At that point, we could make a decision as far as what they who they maybe want. I mean, it really makes no sense for us to make the change now. We put it in place, then what? It could be a waste of time. So why don't we wait till the new council comes in? It could be the same council members that are here, right? Except for Councilmember Madera, it could be a new person. I mean, we're 7 months away. I mean, we're May already. Elections are in November. New body gets in December.
All right, how many people want to move forward with changing it now? How many people want to wait until December? Oh, that's a lot of people who don't want to make the change, period. All right, so we're not going to meet on those days. Okay, thank you very much, Brittany. Appreciate all your help.
Thank you for staying late.
Thank you.
City Manager Rogers?
Yes, ma'am.
Can we move through this more quickly than ordinary? Because generally take about a half an hour.
Yes, ma'am. We're only gonna talk about July 16th, given that we've talked
All right.
the last couple of weeks about May and June. July 16th, July 16th. It's our regular meeting. July 7th, there we go, sorry, my apologies. What we currently have on July consent agenda, we have two presentations, actually, we have oil and gas, we have Epic yearly update, we have 616,000 for pedestrian underpass upgrades recognition. For CDS spending, we have 4.16 recognition for chambered roads. We have GOCO, 500,000 recognition, for Sand Creek Greenway. We have transfer audit revenue, for the CIP to the police substation. Second reading, which would be in August. We have 1.9 for the ongoing Highway 2 median improvement project. We have a budget amendment ordinance to look for the ice rink holiday market for 2025 season. We have a proclamation identifying July 2025 for Park and Recreation Month. We have a resolution awarding a contract for the Buffalo Run Clubhouse renovation. We have an ordinance for the Civic Center remodel, which is for this wing of the building. For shifts of existing departments into. And then we have the executive session for the municipal court judge. All in all, right now, that is looking at 11:05 p.m. Again, that could be a lot faster depending upon how quickly we move through some items that are currently slated for Clubhouse and Civic Center remodel. And as well as our presentations.
Say I'm hoping for the best, that we can do it.
All right. As far as updates, I only have one or two big updates for you all. Wayfinding signage currently, our package is with CDOT for review. There are some of our wayfinding signs that are within CDOT right of ways that they have to approve. Once we get that package back, we will be able to finalize that review package, which is hopefully that will occur in June. Then that bid package would go out in July. Hopefully then we will have a company in tow to begin installation in the fall. And just a kudos to go out, Jordan LeBlanc, PJ First Assistant Golf Professional at our own Buffalo Run Golf Course, is captaining a team for the 2025 Secretary's Cup. That's out in Coral Hollow Club in North Carolina. The Secretary Cup is held in conjunction with the PGA Championship that brings together veterans from across the country. He is leading a team in hope of being able to win the PGA Hope Colorado Cup, which they represented Colorado last year, and last year's tournament in the Springs. So hopefully they can represent Colorado well again this year. And he's going with a team that's also represented with 3 other players from Commerce City, also representing other members that are veterans from the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. So best of luck to you fellas. And that is it.
Thank you very much. City Attorney Zarzaki.
Nothing to report. Thank you.
No report? All right. Okay. Chief, reports? Anyone? Councilor Dukes?
Just quickly, I was able to do the walk neighborhood engagement. It was a great experience for the folks that came out. It was a beautiful weekend. A lot of the topic we talked about was just important. So folks want another grocery store. That's something that was brought up, but also the idea of just how beautiful our parks are in general, the connectivity, and then sometimes brought up the proximity of the city to other parks and metro areas. So some good discussions there. And I also met with Greg Mills, mayor of Brighton, and just kind of touch base around what they're doing in Brighton. It was on the same day they did the ribbon cut in Olive Garden, and as well as the In-N-Out Burger. So just trying to pick their brain about what they're doing, where they're at, and where they're going. So that's pretty much it.
You just wanted free Alfredo pasta.
Just the breadsticks, that's all.
And breadsticks. Right, exactly. Anyone else?
I could do it.
Okay, Councilor Mitchell.
Last week I already mentioned that I went to Maleo, but it means the National Alliance of Latino elected and appointed officials. So it gave a lot of really good information about kind of the state of the nation right now when it comes to Latino and Latina population overall. I mentioned already density, community development. They went into housing initiatives, a bunch of different things I would love to share. So I could share with the city manager. And if it feels prevalent or if it feels pertinent to the stuff that we're doing, I think it really would honestly help.
Send my way.
Because it's from LA, I mean, they're 10 times worse with some of their issues and us, that it kind of felt nice to talk about some of the stuff from Commerce City. They're like, oh, that's so nice. I'm like, yes, it is compared to you, yes. So I got a lot of really good inspiration from it. That's it.
Please send my
That's
way.
great. Thank you. Anyone else? Councilmember Douglas.
So, I attended the deputy city manager candidate event to meet the different candidates, and that was a really good event, and I'm glad that it was put on, and attended the senior commission and then the policy and governance meeting on ethics and code of conduct.
Thank you, Councilor Kim.
Attended the Veterans Commission meeting. One of the things that the Veterans Commission is looking at doing is to get in contact with the VFW that was broken into to see what we can do to help from a Veterans Commission standpoint to not only help them out either monetarily or some form, but also try to build some form of memorial right there on that corner lot. See if we can probably do something all together. Of course, I attended the deputy city manager. I don't think that any of them were qualified in that role. So just kidding. That was a great event overall. I think Mr. Rogers has a really tough decision to make overall. So but that's all. Thank you. Oh, the last thing event, Stephanie's Cafe had a conversation deal together. Same thing. It was about economic development, about the crime, potholes in the streets. Good times.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll do mine. First of all, I want to give a big shout. Oh, I'm sorry, Mayor Douglas, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead. You're in the middle.
It's all
I'm
right.
still writing stuff down.
You were? All right, I want to give a big shout out to Public Works and the Commerce City Police Department, who responded very quickly to residents in the villages of Buffalo Run who were really upset about speeding in that community. CCPD has already been out with a radar gun today. They were meeting, CCPD and Public Works are meeting this afternoon together and Public Works is going to be doing more speed tests in the area to find out why the speed bumps they put in the area did not have any particular effect. So I just really want to thank them for responding so quickly. I was also doing investigating in the past week about xeriscaping, Colorado scaping, water-wise planting and trees, etc. We had passed a xeriscaping ordinance last August, and residents wanted to know where to go to get information. Unfortunately, there is not a portal for residents. There is information for developers. The city is going to have to be putting together a portal now that lists those plants, trees, et cetera. I know from talking to a resident in Ward 4 that Reunion is allowing xeriscaping, but not of the tree lawn. You're not allowed to do anything to the tree lawn. And I worked with City Attorney Zarzecki as well, because I wanted to know how it all dovetailed with Colorado state law that allows, that doesn't allow HOAs to override laws. And in this particular case, it does kind of. So an HOA can have their own rules regarding aesthetics and that kind of thing. They can't disallow xeriscaping, but they can have rules regarding the aesthetics of it. The Senior Commission had a meeting, as Councilmember Douglas noted, and the Senior Resource Fair, mark your calendar, is June 7th from 9 to 1:30 at Adams City High School. This is the 4th year of the Senior Resource Fair, so it's very impressive. I attended the 2025 Residential and Commercial Land Development Conference and Expo at the suggestion of a developer. It was really quite fascinating. I had a good conversation with a land use economist, which who knew a land use economist is even a career path, but it was, and she had tons of useful information for us that I'll use at another time. And then there was a big discussion in almost every group regarding water, control of water, who has water, and why those cities are priorities when you're a developer. Those included Aurora and Greeley. So those cities know that they have water, they have reservoirs. You don't have to go through hoops to get permitting, et cetera. So it's something to keep in mind for the future. We had a policy and governance committee as well, committee meeting as well. So that'll be coming forward to you. And I helped 27J give away money today. So that was fun because of my role as a treasurer on one of these things. I guess and I'm working on grocery stores. So I have a developer who's interested, who wants his land for Aldi's, because Aldi's is doing 800 new stores. And then I was contacted by another resident who has, her son works with another grocery store chain, and he has great access to someone in particular in the city, wants to make those connections. So who knows what might happen, but things can happen even when you're not at a conference if you just put the word out and people know people. Sure. Mayor Douglas.
Thank you. Appreciate that. See, Tuesday, I met with Anderson Ranch with City Manager Rogers to talk about my concerns about metro districts. See Dr. Cog meeting as a virtual update on the decarbonization grant that the city will be receiving. That's the start of the process of receiving part of the $200 million on a decarbonization, and more work to come. Let's see, there's a key account with United Power, and Garrett Anderson was there in attendance for Karma City. E470 meeting on Thursday as well, and they talked about widening of E470 from 104th all the way up to Highway 85. Metro Mayor Sustainability Resilience Committee meeting talked about Colorado Resilience Office aim to assist communities in building resilience. Post 2013 disaster framework in 2015 and 2020. Next update later on this year in 2025. And there's a wildfire resilient code adoption. New minimum state wildfire resilient code expected by July 2025 this year. Local jurisdictions have 9 months to adopt and 3 months for enforcement. Concerns include housing affordability, implementation of capacity. Code applies only to new construction or significant renovations. Localities can use this risk map for accuracy. They showed a risk map. And then emergency alert system challenges. Let's see. Then also attended the city manager event with candidates. I appreciate the citizens who came out and the candidates for participating. And that's going to be really interesting on that outcome to see exactly where we are going to be. So that's it. Did any council members go to Adams County last Tuesday, I believe, as far as the award? No, last Wednesday. Adams County Grant awardees share back recipient breakfast. I know there's 2 council members that signed up for. Did any of those council members go report out on that?
I did.
Thank you, Councilmember Teeter.
Anything about it, Councilmember Teeter?
Yeah, we picked up a $1 million check for, it's basically projects we already fixed and worked on. There's the park, the Spice Park, and there's 3 other projects there. We just picked up the GoCo check. Project's already done.
Thank you very much. All right, we're going to take a break and come back at 5 of 10. We are adjourning, we will be adjourning to a special meeting. So let me see what I'm going to say here. Okay, the time is now 9:45. Seeing no further business, we're going to recess until 5 of 10, and then we will adjourn to a special meeting.
Will I be receiving a new link?
It's a special meeting, it's not executive session. Don't go.
There will be a separate link for.
There will be?
Yes.
Yes, I'll send you a new Zoom invite, Mayor Douglas. I'm gonna end
Okay.
this meeting right now.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Did I miss? I sure did. call an executive session. So that's the process. So I will now call the meeting to order and ask the clerk to take roll call.
Mayor Douglas, Mayor Pro Tem Noble,
Here.
Councilmember Madera, Councilmember Teeter,
President,
Councilmember Chacon,
Present.
Councilmember Kim.
There.
Councilmember Dukes here. Councilmember Ford.
There.
Councilmember Douglas.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem, you have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Now, I need a motion and a second to enter into an executive session for the city council of Commerce City pursuant to, oh, wait, I'm going back. Okay, here's the mayor. I need a motion and a second to extend the meeting beyond 10:30.
Real quick, sorry, Mayor Pro Tem, you need a motion and second to excuse the members not present first.
They're all, all right, thank you. I need a motion and a second to excuse the sole member not present, Oscar Madera.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
All right. Now I need a motion and a second to extend the meeting to 11 p.m.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Nay?
Nay.
Okay, the motion carries. Now I need a motion and a second to enter an executive session of the City Council of Commerce City pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-402 4B for the purpose of receiving legal advice regarding existing agreements between Commerce City and Kroenke Soccer Stadium LLC and pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-4024E to develop strategy for negotiating regarding the same. Is there any discussion?
Make a motion.
Make the motion.
A second.
Make the all right, we have a motion.
Motion,
We have a
second.
first and a second.
No.
All right. So the motion on the floor is to enter into an executive session of the City Council of Commerce City pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-4024B for the purpose of receiving legal advice regarding existing agreements between Commerce City and Kroenke Soccer Stadium LLC and pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-4024E to develop strategy for negotiations regarding the same. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay.
And do I get a new link?
All right, so before entering into executive session, I need a motion and a second to automatically adjourn the meeting following the executive session.
So
Is
moved.
there a first? Okay, then Councilmember Kim and
Second.
Councilmember Chacon is a second. The motion on the floor is to automatically adjourn the meeting following the executive session. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. All right, the motion carries. We will now enter into executive session. Council will not be returning to take action following the executive session because we just voted on that. The meeting will be immediately adjourned following the executive session. The meeting broadcast and recording will now end.
You'll get your new link here in just one moment, Mayor. So, yeah.